It's starting. Okay, I think we're live. I'm gonna give it a second. I think we're live though. Okay, everyone. Ethan Word here from Word Tech Reviews, and this is WordCast number 7, I believe, which is it's just the latest stuff that we're gonna talk about on tech, and there's actually a lot to talk about today. So, anyway, go ahead.
I'm Daniel. Yeah, let's get started. That's all.
Let's get started. Okay, sounds good.
Yeah.
Um,
Right out of the gate, let's go with phones because there was a lot of those and there were some really big ones. And let's start with the probably what will end up being the best seller of all the phones that were announced recently,
yeah.
the S6 and S6 Edge.
Yep, absolutely.
So, Samsung finally changed up their design for good and bad. There's going to be a lot of people that are going to make upset, a lot of people that are going to make happy, though. Personally, I like it going forward because the trade-offs were things that I already didn't care that much about. Just general breakdown of specs, you have a 5.1-inch 1440p Super AMOLED display. That's putting it right around a 577 pixel per inch resolution, which is ridiculous for for anything, let alone a phone.
I know,
Holy
it is pretty
crap.
crazy.
Yeah. And
It's higher than
Go ahead.
it's higher than this guy right here, and it was the first 1440.
Yeah. And initial impressions of the display from everyone I've read that's had hand-on say it's it's easily the best display on the market right now.
Yeah,
Which
and
is good to hear.
I wouldn't deny that. Samsung's displays have always been top-notch. Going on just a quick side tangent, but having high-end displays is actually one thing that frustrates me about what a lot of reviewers do. Is a lot of them, when they're reviewing the camera, they take, they're comparing the camera of two smartphones, and like a Note versus whatever, right? Or say the Galaxy S5 versus the G3, and they take pictures and they look at them and they decide whose looks best. But it's like there's no way to decide without looking on an identical panel.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
it's pretty sad because it's like,
a
of
little
course,
bit of an issue.
yeah, of course the S5 is going to look nicer. It's a fucking Super AMOLED compared to this LCD, which I prefer the look of an LCD. That's part of why I went with this. I like a flat, less poppy color look, but yeah, I mean, I like a little bit. I like IPS style, if you know what I mean. But anyway,
Yeah.
let's continue on with the Galaxy S6 and S6 Edge.
Next up on the specs list is the internals. So as of right now, it's not 100% confirmed that the US is getting the Exynos, but it is looking like it is, just based off of things that both Qualcomm have said and all the rumors. But ultimately, the global version, at least, is going to have the Exynos 7, which is an octa-core chip running 4 2.1 gigahertz cores and 4 1.5 gigahertz. So when you're doing intensive things, it'll ramp up the power, use those higher-end cores. When you're doing Facebook web browsing, things like that, it'll switch to the lower end cores, save battery life.
Right, which I like that idea. I think that Samsung had something going for them a long time ago when they first decided to start doing that. The only thing that confuses me is I'm wondering why they didn't just do like a quad 1 gigahertz just to get that little extra power saving, because even that's enough to power through basic tasks.
Probably because they have TouchWiz.
Right, okay. Although at the same time, too, I suppose there needs to be that little bit of a cushion there just so that it doesn't, you load up Facebook and it ramps to the other ones and then it ramps back down.
Yeah.
It would be switching too often, so they need to make it so that the heavy-duty ones really only turn on when you're doing videos and whatnot.
Yeah.
3 gigs of RAM, DDR4, so...
Yeah, low power DDR4, so that'll also help with battery life.
Yeah, which that'll help with a lot of things. That'll help with 4K video recording, too.
Mm-hmm.
Just because of the RAM speed. So that's something which that's the only disappointment I have with the G3 actually, is I can't record 4K for more than 5 minutes and more than 2 minutes if I've had the camera on for a long time, because it just starts to get too hot.
Yeah, but that's the case with pretty much every smartphone on the market now. This it caps out if I'm doing 4K UHD, it caps out at like 4 or 5 minutes. If I'm doing DCI, it gets destroyed at like 2 minutes.
Right, exactly. And then there's but if you look at the Nexus 6, it doesn't overheat. It gets hot, but it doesn't overheat. The Nexus 6 will record 4K pretty much indefinitely. I had a guy at work actually has the Nexus 6 and he flipped on 4K and he let it run for like 15 minutes and it was fine. I mean, it was hot, but it just kept going. It didn't have a time limit on it.
Well, you have to look first-gen phones that's like the first generation of 4K recording phones versus second and third. They're obviously going to make some major improvements.
Right, exactly. Yeah, so that's why all of our videos, by the way, everyone, are actually still in 1080p on the channel. Besides our live streams, obviously these are webcams, so they're lower. But yeah, that's the reason for that is just because I was going to record everything in 4K, and I announced that on one of our live streams. Well, it's not that way anymore because I just can't record for that period of time. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I've in the test videos I've done, I've always had to just do like a couple minutes of cut and then wait a few minutes and then continue, which is awful and
right,
makes it
right.
just really difficult to actually make the video.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah. Now I might start using the 4K stuff for B-roll because I'm gonna get a
Yeah.
fluid tripod. I mean, pretty soon here I'm gonna start trying to get more videos done, and I'm gonna do hand
Mhm.
B-roll, which is pretty hard to do, but with OIS it shouldn't be too hard. So I'm
Yeah.
gonna start doing that, and I'll do those in 4K just so that they look sharper.
Mhm.
Because I do have a lot of reviews coming up and everything. I just
Mhm.
been too busy with school, but once summer hits and stuff, I should be better.
And speaking of camera, the camera on the S6 and the S6 Edge is fucking ridiculous. So it's only 16 megapixels, only 16 megapixels. That's insanely good. That's double the iPhone.
Yeah,
It's
there's no reason for anything more than that.
Yeah, it's more than enough for recording 4K. But what they've done is they've made it an f1.9 aperture lens, which if I'm not mistaken, the S5 was 2.2. So it's a lower one, which is going to give you both more light and then also a much better depth of field. So you'll get those photos where the item in the foreground is actually in focus, or whichever one you want is in
Right,
focus better, and it'll
right.
just look much more like a DSLR-like photo. And the initial images, both from Samsung's sample photos and then also the actual photos from people that have gotten hands-on time, have all looked downright amazing. This is by far one of the most impressive cameras I've seen on a phone as of so far.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Um, yeah. Yeah. No, I know. I'm excited to see what Samsung is going to be capable of doing and everything with all that.
Yeah.
It is very 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 cool.
And then I know that their front camera is, I believe, 5 megapixels, and it's of the same aperture. So again, good low light performance, which will allow your selfies and all that to be at least decent quality, accurate lighting. So
Right. Right. Yeah. Which
it'll
I
be nice.
mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
Um, Next up, then we have Samsung Pay, which pretty much just right then and there won the mobile payments. Everyone else can just give up now and adopt Samsung Pay
Yes. Yes. That's
because
true.
everyone knows, mobile payments through Apple Pay, Google Wallet, and all of that for NFC-based payments. Well, the thing with Samsung Pay, for those who haven't heard of Loop, this just essentially allows you to make Samsung recently acquired Loop, which they made a technology that allows you to make payments in store.
Keep talking. I'm gonna grab mine.
Okay, he actually has the dedicated Loop device that they made. Ultimately, though, they are a little device that would allow you to pay in store by just tapping it to the side of the mag reader. Go ahead and show yours now.
Okay. So it's this little thing right here by Loop Pay, and yeah, like he was saying, is that you put it to the side of the magnetic card reader, and it's able to broadcast the signal. Now, what's so cool about these though is this works with all old machines too. I mean, machines that are
Mhm.
15, 20 years old, that are old super mag stripe machines, super old ones, they will still work with this because of the type of technology that they use to broadcast it. Um, so I actually was one of the early adopters of this. Mine's kind of beat up, but it just plugs into your headphone jack, and then they have a secure server, and then you're able to you charge it up. It has like about a 3-month battery life. I mean, 60 days is what they estimate, but it's actually a lot higher than that
Mhm.
unless you shop all the time. And you just swipe all your cards into it. It stores your cards. You tell it which card to be default on the fob here, and so you just press the button, and boom. I don't know if you guys can see. There's a little light that lights up on the back. There we go. And I'm an idiot. It just sends a signal. So it just sends a signal out. Now, the only thing that I'm a little worried about is I hope that Loop still is around to make their products for everyone rather than just Samsung products. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I
I
don't. If anything, I see Samsung offering the ability for phone manufacturers to
added into
buy
their
into
stuff.
Samsung Pay. I don't see them making the separate device so much, just because Samsung wants to ultimately use the idea of an actual mobile wallet, not a sometimes mobile wallet, as a
Right.
big seller for this, and the fact that it's integrated into the phone. So now you either have NFC payments through Samsung Pay, it supports QR payments, and then it also supports the MagStripe payments, so you can pay anywhere that takes credit and debit.
Yeah, exactly, which is
It's
pretty
as simple
awesome.
as that.
The
And
only thing I will
unlike,
say,
go
and
ahead.
there's actually a problem with it, and it's the only problem I've encountered with this. Um, it will not work in machines that cards go deep into, and I don't mean just like ATMs, obviously, where you actually have to like let it pull your card in.
Mhm.
I mean like even like I was at Picoberry the other day, and it won't work on the Picoberry machines because they let the card go in like halfway.
Mhm.
So I mean, you only have like this much space sticking out, so the actual magnetic strip reader is way down in the bottom, and the signal just doesn't quite reach it. A lot of times, it'll kind of just get an
Mhm.
error because the full signal doesn't go in, and that's a little frustrating.
Yeah,
Um,
Samsung also might have found. I mean, by then, with how I mean, you have one of the early ones. They might have found
right,
a way to boost it too.
right,
We'll see.
exactly. I mean, it was probably, especially because this is the fob, it doesn't have anywhere near the size of a battery that a phone will have, or the
Mhm.
amperage that a battery that a phone has can put out. Now, Daniel, I just wanted you to throw the same message that I have on mine up on your screen, which I hope mine doesn't look backwards to you, does it?
No.
Okay, good. Just throw that up there so
How
that
do I do
people know
that?
to tweet to us. Just click draw. It's on the left side. It's like the mustache thing, and then you click text, and then it says, and then make sure you select the head, or sorry, the screen, not the head, because there's like an image. There's one that's like a square and one that's a head. If it's on the head, it'll like try and track your head and like glitches out, and then just do text.
Whoops.
I will leave it locked on me for now. Oh, wait, why did mine go away? Are you drawing
Whoops.
on me?
I think I did. Yeah.
Oh boy. This is what happens when we do live streams, guys. We're good at it. Get rid of it. Uh, we're good at this. This is what happens there. Okay, I'm back to normal. Do you have it on yours yet? There we go. There we go. Okay, tweet questions. All right, perfect, perfect. All right, that way we can actually maybe get some people asking us stuff. If you guys have any questions about anything, let us know, and we'll respond as quick as we can. I've got the Twitter loaded up on the side over here. So, finishing up with the S6, new charging features.
Yeah. So it has both, so it has wireless charging and quick charging. Everyone knows quick charging. You plug it in, it charges a lot faster. In the case of this, it should give you about 4 hours of usage in about 10 minutes of actually being on.
Yeah,
Now
I'm
though
impressed with that.
on top of that, this has something not many phones have, which is for one integrated wireless charging. But this one, unlike the few phones that do have wireless charging, doesn't just support a single standard. So for people that don't know about wireless charging, there's a couple versions. There's Qi, there's PMA, there's a couple of other smaller ones. And so you have to make sure and buy compatible hardware to go with your charging pad that matches your phone. In the case of this, it supports both PMA and Qi, which are the two major ones. So if you have
Right.
like a power mat, it'll work. If you have a charger from a Nokia phone, it'll work. Yeah, PMA is for the most part power mat.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, Qi is a lot of what most of the newer stuff is using, just because that's what like the Nexus devices had integrated.
Yeah, she is most common, but I
Mm.
mean, at least it supports both, which I'm impressed with
Yeah.
that. I did want to make a quick note on the quick charge features, just to let anybody know. So the way quick charging works is they've got basically smart wall warts now that they are able to, for a certain time period, give out a much higher amperage than a standard charger. But if they were to do this, the reason that the batteries, they say it can give you this much in this amount of time. So like, for example, here, 4 hours and about 10 minutes of charge. If you look at like, it won't scale like that forever. So it's not like, oh yeah, you get to max charge in like 30 minutes. It takes longer. It slows itself down because the quick charging actually does ruin the battery. So I just wanted to note to people that the quick charging will not. It doesn't. I mean, usually people upgrade their phones often enough that it doesn't matter too much. But especially because this battery is non-removable, you got to choose when to use quick charging, which I believe on the Woolworths there's a way to flip it on and off, correct?
I don't know with the S6.
Okay,
I'm
I don't know.
assuming it just knows how to do it automatically.
It could be, because it would just be a thing where I wouldn't, you don't want it to kill your battery, because if you give the wrong amperage to a battery over time, even
I
the new lithium polymer, it will ruin.
Samsung's not the type of company that would integrate something so early that people have to know to switch between it.
Okay, that's
Because
true.
that's going to
Right.
kill batteries and that's going to cost them money. And they're out to make, I mean, they're essentially the Apple of the Android world. They're out to make as much money as possible. So they're
Right,
going
right.
to
That's true. That's true.
reduce RMA costs.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you make a good point. So I'm supposing they
Speaking
figured
of
it out.
speaking of Samsung being Apple, holy shit, does the side of this phone look like a fucking iPhone? I don't. If you
Yeah,
guys look at the
yeah.
sides, it is literally curved like an iPhone. It has the same. If you're looking at like at
Oh
least the
yeah,
silver and
one
white
one hundred
one, it has
percent.
the white bands. It's pretty much a good iPhone. I'll put it that way. It's a good iPhone.
Thank you. That's an okay way to put it. Here,
Yeah.
let's see. I'm gonna find some images of it so we can throw it up here because we're gonna start doing PowerPoints during our presentations sometimes, guys. Not like we still want you to see us, but just to get a little bit better information out there. But I'm gonna go ahead and search for a picture of it, just so that you guys can kind of see what it looks like. I'm
Just go
gonna
to
do a
any of the
screen share.
carriers' websites.
I found one, Phone Arena.
Okay.
So I just want to let you guys know this is courtesy of Phone Arena, and I'm searching it on Google just to give them all credit for that. So let's see, share that one. Boom. Okay, lock it on me. Okay, so if you look over here, you can see my mouse and everything. This is what it looks like. Now, the main thing that he's talking about is this bottom, the
View
rounded
the
edge.
image full screen, by the way, because it's very pixelated in the stream.
Right. Thank you. If it will load full screen. Yeah, it won't load any.
Okay.
Well, I can zoom. Maybe that'll help a little bit. Just so that you guys can see a little bit more detail. I know that's not great because of the stream, but anyway, if you look at the bottom here, if the way it curves around is very similar to the iPhone, but to make it even more obvious, you look at the speaker grill and you look at the antenna lines. It is basically identical to the iPhone. If you look at the iPhone 6, and this is also a courtesy of Google. Let's see if I can find. Yeah. Okay. So if you look at like. They don't have very. Okay, they have the side pictures here. You can see the way it curves around down there, and it also has that that antenna down there. Now the antennas are in a different direction, as you can see. They go down this side, but and that's probably a little bit smarter. But other than that, it's still a Galaxy.
Now, though, the funny thing is that if they would have opted to go with flat sides to make it not look like an iPhone, they would have actually had to have paid Apple money because Apple does, from what I remember, own a patent on rectangular devices with curved edges.
Yeah, of course, because Apple owns a patent on everything.
Oh, yeah.
So I also wanted to point out here. All right, so the back is going to be a sheet of Gorilla Glass 3. I'm happy to see that, so you don't have to worry about the back scratching either. The camera sticks out. Guys, don't complain about that. It's just stupid to complain about the camera sticking out.
And it's in the center, so at least it'll still give you, like if you're doing like typing or something on it, it won't be super
Wobbly.
awkward, whereas on the iPhone, it'll still wobble on the sides, but just not as much, and it'll be consistent, whereas on the iPhone, where it's off to the side, it's at least worse there. But with it being on the back where it's at, it's going to be fine.
Right, exactly. Which, I mean, this goes to stand. I have a big point about phones becoming so thin that they're starting to sacrifice things, and, I mean, I don't mind the camera bump, but what I'm getting at is when you look at a phone that's this thin, and I don't know the exact measurement, but when you look at a phone that's as thin as this one is here, it's kind of scary almost because they went with a smaller battery than the S5. They actually shrunk the battery down. It's what? Is it a 2650? Something like that?
Yeah, but see, I don't so much, honestly, just having a larger battery so much doesn't matter. I mean, you look at it, yes, it's going to have a lower battery, but I bet you it won't have lower battery life because, especially if they're using the Exynos chip, which is going to have better battery life than the Qualcomm in the first place.
Right, that is true,
On top of the fact that just architecturally, as time goes on, the battery life improves, and then as Android is improving, battery life improves. So Samsung is doing what they can to compete with Apple.
Yeah.
Apple totes their size, so Samsung's got to do it if they want to compete and remain on top. Because that's what they do is they're the ones. They do a very, very good job of getting Android or iPhone users to transition to Android, and then as time goes on, those people will move from Samsung to other phones.
Right, that is true. That is true.
I feel like they have a very important place in Android because of that. There would be a lot more people that would just stick with iPhone if it wasn't for having them in the market.
Right,
so
right.
When it comes to their phones, yes, you do have the trade-off of smaller battery, but you're not. I guarantee it won't be a loss in battery life.
You know, though, at the same time, when you look at that, I feel that it's still not. I mean, I think they could have made it thicker, kept the same exact design, and just made it a little bit larger so that they could stack more of the battery cell sheets in there. In the sense that, you know, even if that's, I think, we're starting to almost see a problem with is batteries have been progressively getting larger because the other components inside have been getting smaller, as well as architectural improvements have been improving battery life, which is all really good. But when you look at now that they're starting to diminish it, it's like that they're accepting that battery life is good enough, and the problem is battery life is not good enough. I have a
But
3000
again, battery life can get better in other ways than just having a larger
It
battery. And I
can.
think that
That's
that's
true.
where the focus honestly needs to be,
I agree.
because
I agree.
larger batteries aren't necessarily just a good thing.
Right, right. No, I agree completely, and it's more resources and everything. We need to get things more efficient, and I understand. But I feel that they should have still gone with a bigger battery and been able to then get really good battery life out of it to the point that if
Mm.
you're watching YouTube videos and doing all kinds of other stuff, that it doesn't die. Because this will die on me in a day if I'm watching a lot of YouTube videos and whatnot. Now, this is a Snapdragon 801, and it's a 3000 milliamp battery, just for those of you that don't know. It's the LG G3, and it'll get me through a day of heavy use of checking various social networks and reading up articles, watching a couple of videos, and messaging literally all day long. But that's good enough for me, but at the same time, if I sit and want to actually do something on my phone that can utilize the power of the Snapdragon in there, because let's face it, the Snapdragon 400 can do all those things I just said without a problem. And then you look at, I have that power in there, but then I don't feel comfortable when I'm out and about to use my phone as a mobile platform to game and whatnot, unless I have a battery with me, which I do. I carry around a backup battery. But I feel that that's almost unnecessary, and I wish that I could do whatever I want in the phone and still get through a full day.
Yeah. Also, though, I feel like wireless charging is going to help with that a lot, because you're seeing companies like Starbucks, for example, integrate wireless charging. They're working on integrating wireless charging into like the tables that they'll have, and I guarantee you,
Right.
as time goes on, and especially now that you're having a big name device integrate wireless charging right out
Hmm.
of the gate, you're going to see even more of that. And so as time goes on, you'll be in situations where instead of just having to worry about going home and charging your phone or having a cable with you to charge it, you'll be able to just set your phone down and it'll be charging. So yeah,
Right.
even if you have the same, let's say 12 hours of actual low end use on the phone to go with, but you charge it 5 times throughout the day, it doesn't really matter. It'll still get you long past that full day. And so there are other ways for them to supplement that battery life while they improve the efficiency and still keep the sleek phones. Don't get me wrong, I'm down for a thicker phone. What I would like to see is them just keep it the same thickness as the camera module, because that's one going to stop people from bitching about the camera wobbling or like
Yeah.
extending out the back. Two, it's going to mean that they don't have to, while they still should, they don't have to put in as much resources into, like, for example, Apple putting Sapphire on the camera lens. They honestly
Right.
wouldn't need to do that if they had a phone that the camera was a little bit into the phone instead of sticking out.
So it didn't scratch. Right.
Yeah.
Now, at the
Um,
same time, though, adding those extra lenses in there does take up space, and if they were to make the phone thicker, a lot of the manufacturers would probably just make the camera even larger so that they can get those nicer low light shots and whatnot with a larger
hmm.
sensor. So I
What they
think,
should do, though, is design the phone and then design the camera and then redesign the phone to fit that camera.
right, right, yeah, yeah,
They should have the phone just fit the camera and it be flat, and then fill that extra stuff up with battery life. And I really,
yeah.
really hope that Apple does it, and we'll talk about their batteries in their new MacBook later, but they've kind of redone how they make batteries to where they make even thinner, like, cell sheets so that they can fit them into every little crevice inside the openings.
Right, right, they
So
have, yep.
I'm hopeful that the iPhone 6s, which I want to see what they're gonna do with the iPhone 6s. Apple's gonna make some stupid joke about 6s, 6s, 6s.
Yes, they are. I'm sure
Yeah.
they are.
But
Oh
I
boy.
hope that they do something integrating their new style of making batteries, because I feel like even in the exact same body phone, they could probably get an extra hour of battery life or something out of just their new batteries, how they manufacture it. So
Right,
we'll
yeah,
see.
yeah, yeah. No, I think that would make a lot of sense. You know, I think that what I was going to not transition into, because we have other stuff to talk about, but mention is something that, and a lot of people aren't going to like to hear this, but I actually feel that the BlackBerry Passport is still the most innovative phone of 2014. And you know, I know you hate that, but you look at it and you think about it. It has a capacitive keyboard that is, well, it's a physical keyboard, but got capacitive touch movement in it. It's one of the higher res display phones that came out before some of the other ones right now. It's 1440p, and it's got a 3650 or 3850 milliamp battery. I can't remember which. So I mean, the battery life of that thing will power through a day basically no matter what you throw at it. It's got, you know, a form factor that feels like it's more meant for business-like stuff. And I mean, there are other big innovations that have happened in phones, but I feel like when I say innovative, I'm also looking for something different. I'm not looking for just the next fastest thing or the next, you know, whatever. And basically, all I just wanted to brush up on was, you know, they didn't want to make the phone so thin that it was ridiculous and stupid. They instead beefed up the battery, and they're to the point that that thing, I mean, a 3650 milliamp battery with a Snapdragon 801. I mean, the thing is so good at what it does. It never. I mean, my buddy has it, and it has never died on him in a day ever. And I mean, you're not going to be doing too much media content consumption on there, just because it's a square display, which I feel that that's not innovative. But you know, it's still going to get you through a day no matter what you throw at it, pretty much flat out.
Mhm.
Yeah. So.
Let's move on to the next phone, though. There was one other big flagship announced. HTC came out with their M9. Now, I'm going to say right off the gate, if you look at it, at first glance, it's going to look like an M8, but in all honesty, it's kind of like the M8, and they took the best parts of the M7 and the best parts of the M8, put them together, so you no longer have that ridiculously slipperiness of the M8.
Yeah. Right.
They made the sides a little bit flatter. It's just much easier to grip, but other than that, they really didn't change much. It still has that black bezel on the bottom, which they do, to an extent, have to have because they need the display driver somewhere. I feel like they probably could have taken some time to engineer maybe a cool way to integrate it around the bottom speaker. I'm sure they could have figured that out if they actually tried.
Yeah.
I feel like they just figured, whatever, we need the display driver somewhere, let's just not move it.
Right. No. Yeah. I guess it makes sense, you know, to not move it, just because there is, you know, they have to. It's still not the ugliest thing ever. It just feels like a waste of space.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't look bad by any means. So.
As far as specs go, though, we got a 5-inch, so slightly smaller than the S6 and S6 Edge screen.
Yeah, but I mean, not enough to notice. I mean,
1080p Super LCD display, running at 441 pixels per inch, so much lower than the S6, but also not, you know, a bad resolution. 5 inches 1080p looks amazing. I mean, I'm running a 5.5-inch 1080p, and I have no complaints.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I mean, I have the 5.5 1440 here, but you know, at the same time, there's a lot more that goes into display than just the resolution.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not complaining about this in any way, but what I'm getting at is, yeah, you know, the resolution. I feel that for this screen size, 1440p is definitely the ideal sweet spot for phones. But 1080p, you know, isn't bad by any means, as well as, you know, I mean, I think around 500 to between 500 and 550 ppi is about what you want, but 441 is still nothing to laugh at. You're not going to be seeing the pixels on that pretty much at all, especially because it's, you know, it's still a good phone. And I mean, everybody likes HTC's displays because, and I like it too because they're using the super LCD. And like I was saying earlier, is I like the flatter look of an LCD. Now, I mean, it does have its ups and downs when it comes to color reproduction and whatnot, but I feel that Super AMOLED is a little bit too poppy, and most people like that. But it depends on, you know, your flavor of display.
What I want in a display is I want the flatness of a Super LCD, but the everything else about Super AMOLED. Like the fact that it's not always on. Like the blacks are off. That right there alone is what makes me prefer Super AMOLED over LCD. If they had the mix of the two, that would be the best.
Right, exactly. Hey Daniel, keep talking. I actually have something else that I want to show the viewers here in just a second. So keep talking about the display and about the M9.
Okay. Couple other things about the M9. So internals, you're looking at a Qualcomm Snapdragon 810, which is another octa-core chip. Again, 4 high-power cores, 4 low-power cores. This time it's running 4 at 2 gigahertz and 4 at 1.5. You're also seeing 3 gigabytes of RAM. Other features include a 20.7 megapixel rear camera and a 4 ultra pixel front camera. So they did keep around the idea of having ultra pixels, but they just moved it to only the front camera. Now I will say this though, initial images from the M9, honestly, from the back camera, even though it's not ultra pixel, still don't look that good. I mean, honestly, they look like a high-end phone from 2 or 3 years ago would have.
Right,
Not.
right. Which I mean, we'll see. All right. So the first thing I wanted to brush on, sorry to interrupt you, but when you were talking about the ultra pixels, is I don't want people to get the idea that they're ultra pixels. They call it the ultra pixel camera, but they are not ultra pixels by any mean. It's just that they're larger than most smartphones' pixels for the sensor. You can get, I can guarantee you that many DSLRs and whatnot are going to have substantially larger pixels, and they don't call them ultra pixels. I feel like it's a good name to call the camera for the consumer front, but I don't want anyone to get confused by that. There's nothing else that's special about them. They're just larger. You take the surface area, it's just a lower PPI. But anyway, yeah, the camera. The interesting thing about the camera is it's using the Sony sensor, which has proven itself on Sony's phones. If it,
I'm going to straight up guess it's just HTC has very, very, very terrible image processing.
Yeah.
Which they can improve, though. Their image processing algorithms, I mean, they spent the past few years designing them around having a 4-megapixel camera. Now they're jumping all the way up to 20.7. They're going to have to redo all of that.
They are, right. Which, it does have a lot of room to improve, you're right. Because the sensor itself is proven. If you look at a lot of Sony's Xperia series phones, they take pretty much flat out the best pictures on any smartphone out there. I mean, within reason, not talking about, Nokia's crazy stuff, but I mean, like, an actual thing that's not meant to be, a smartphone built around a camera, but is a camera in a smartphone. You look at them, and they are absolutely beautiful for low light and and anything else. It's a great sensor. It's just that processing that has to happen after, which the processing can even take what the sensor is good at and make it horrible. So it's not just me, I'm not just getting at that, Sony must have better processing. It's the fact that the sensor itself has been proven to be a good sensor. The processing can make it better or worse. So, it's not like we're seeing what the sensor can do without good processing. It's that we're seeing what the sensor does with bad processing, if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah. Now, the other thing with the M9, the one thing where it does have a major edge over the Galaxy S6 is the micro SD card support.
Yes.
Now, for me, this isn't that big of a deal because, like, where I stand on the phones is I have unlimited data. I consistently, where I use my phone, have good enough connection that for things like music, which would be the thing that would take up the most space on my phone other than recording video, I can just stream and then offline mode it when I need it, take it off later. The one thing I would need extra storage for is 4K video recording, but you can't record 4K video to an SD card anyway, as it wouldn't have the correct performance most likely. So it doesn't really matter. I can just record it, upload it, or put it on a computer, or I have a flash drive for my phone, and then I'm done. So for me, that's not big of a deal. For some people, it is.
Well, you have to look at it depends on the SD card too, because there are
the SD card may have the speeds to support it, and I know they have them that do, but the phone itself in most cases won't have support for recording 4K to it, whether it be because of the software or because the hardware doesn't have that much transfer speed.
Right. Okay, I get what you're getting at then. Yeah. So that is a problem. Although some people like me really need an SD card. Now I don't have one on my phone currently, but luckily it's a 32 gig. I'd be killing myself if this was a 16 gig right now. But having that micro SD card slot option, I think, is really important for some people, and I don't understand why a lot of manufacturers opt out for it when it's really not much harder to add in when you look at the way SIM trays are added in.
The reason that they do it is to sell the higher tier storage. It's as simple as that. There's no
I
other
guess.
reason.
Except
for Google and their Nexus line, because the Nexus line is what essentially it's the Apple of the Android, in which they make what they want the future of Android to be, and they want the future of Android to be as simple as possible. And if you look at the average person, personally working in customer care, I know from experience, most people don't have any idea how to use something like a file manager on their phone to transition some of the stuff that there isn't an easy way to bring from the phone to the SD card. So having that one spot for all of your stuff to be stored is simple, and so there is a reasoning behind that for the companies that only sell one model phone. But when you look at a company like Samsung, it's as simple as they just want to sell the higher tier storage.
Right, exactly. Which, yeah, I mean, looking at, like you were saying with the Nexus line, that's something that I'm really starting to like about Android, is I feel that they're making it simpler and simpler enough to the point that people can start using it and they can't use the excuse that iPhones are easier to use, but they're leaving it open enough that they're leaving it so that, if you know what you're doing with the phone, you can very easily do all the things that everybody's always loved about Android, with, like you were saying, with file management and whatnot, and or routing, or whatever whatever you like to do with your Android phone, all the customizability behind it, compared to the lockdown of I almost said lockdownness of iPhones. And so I'm really liking the way Google's approaching that. I just hope that they don't end up flopping over to the other side, almost like Apple. But I don't think they will, because too many people would be angry about that and would just stop buying their stuff.
Yeah, Google is just going to continue doing their own thing, I feel like.
Right.
The thing to note about storage as well, so the M9 comes with 32 gigabytes of storage, and that's it. There's no other options. The Galaxy S6, which is one thing I didn't mention, it comes in 32, 64, or 128 gigabyte options.
Right. Yeah, which, I mean, yeah, it's pretty cool. So I also wanted to just give a pointer before we move on to the next subject. On top of both of our screens, you may see this right here. So if you have any questions about anything, tweet them to us at WordTech Reviews. I have the Twitter page open, and we'll be answering everything as quick as possible. So go ahead, tweet there, and share this video and whatnot. Share the link, just so that way we can get some more people watching us and getting some more questions. We like to answer questions during these shows. So do you want to go ahead and move on to the next subject, or do you have anything more to comment on smartphone-wise? Well, I guess I have one thing to throw in smartphone-wise before we go ahead and do the before we transition on to other stuff, is all I'm going to say right now. So when it comes to smartphones, something actually what I was talking about BlackBerry earlier. BlackBerry is releasing. They released a new phone. Released as in it's official, called the BlackBerry Leap, and what it is it's a budget-oriented business class phone, and it's a little bit weird how they're approaching it, but it's an all-touch display, which most BlackBerry people are looking for a keyboard, but it's an all-touch display, kind of like some of their other previous recent phones. It's $275. I'm guessing it's going to have 16 gigs of internal storage, and I'm sure it's going to have an SD card slot. I don't remember off the top of my head if it had that or not, but it's running a Snapdragon 600, I'm pretty sure, and it's a decent resolution display, and it's overall going to be a good business-oriented phone. I'm impressed with what they're doing in that front. It's here. I'm actually going to pull up the specs right now, because this is something that we didn't have set out before. We're trying to keep things a little bit more on topic this time, guys. But
specs-wise, it has a 1280 by 720p display at 5 inches. It runs BlackBerry 10. It has a Qualcomm MSM 89.
Snapdragon S4 Plus. That's what it is. It's an S4 Plus, so it's still an already good proven processor. Yeah. It can handle stuff. 2 gigs of RAM, 16 gigs of storage, 128 gig SD card slot. And we're looking at a 2800 milliamp battery. Now that's something really big there, and that doesn't sound enormous, but you guys have to realize two factors that are really important for that. Is 2800 milliamps for a $275 phone is really enormous, especially because this is the S4 Plus, which is a more power efficient processor than some of the newer stuff that's come out, like the 800. Just because it's just not as fast. That's why it's more power. It's not more efficient. It's just less power consumption. But then you also have to realize that BlackBerry is a little bit different than Android, whereas they optimize their operating system for the hardware that they're delivering, kind of like the way iPhones do, or Apple does, except they do it smarter. Because one thing that Google has been trying to approach with Android is to make it run on lower-end phones so that everybody can get a seamless experience, which is great, and I'm happy they're doing that. But there is a slight downside to that it makes it a little bit harder for the OS to take advantage of some of the high-end stuff, just because they're trying to get it so that everybody gets kind of a more seamless experience with multitasking and everything. But you look at what BlackBerry's OS does and the way that they are able to optimize for things. Their estimate here is up to 25 hours of mixed usage, and so we're looking at a 2800 milliamp battery, and it's a 5-inch 720p display and a Snapdragon S4 Plus and a custom OS. I would be willing to bet that 25 hours isn't too far off. considering just how successful the Passport was in battery life in the battery life department.
And the other thing to know about this phone is it's pretty much an Amazon Android phone because it does have access to the Amazon App Store for Android apps. So you can get quite a lot of things and consistently get free apps that are normally paid.
Right, right, yeah,
So you do have that accessibility. This isn't just a BlackBerry phone with the crappy BlackBerry App Store.
right, right. Which yeah, the BlackBerry App Store by all means is pretty terrible. But yeah, and I do want to note one thing though, in case somebody maybe not doesn't catch that, is the Amazon App Store is definitely different than the Play Store. You're not going to be getting Hangouts and whatnot on here. So if you're a big user of that and don't want to transition, then that could be frustrating. Now I may at some point later this year be getting a BlackBerry and doing a review of it. I don't know yet. So that's something that I'm not going to get into because I don't know yet. But you look at it and having the there was at a point in time where you could get Play services as well as the actual Play Store on the BlackBerry OS, and some people were able to get things like Google Maps and Hangouts and stuff to work, although that stuff's all been removed. But one thing also is that the really highly used apps on the Amazon App Store that are for Android, a lot of times BlackBerry will specifically certify and optimize for their OS and then make it available in the App Store. So for example, the Skype app, it's literally a port of the Android app onto the BlackBerry App Store, but it's optimized for the more square-like screen on the Passport. But yeah, anyway, this phone, I mean, it is going to be a good business phone because it can do all the things that a business person needs. And you're not going to be gaming, and you're not. I mean, it has the power to sort of, but you're not. It's not meant for gaming and not meant for watching a lot of videos, and not meant for taking really nice pictures. It's meant for doing spreadsheet work and doing lots of connected work where you need this thing to get you through an entire day. So that's something that they're approaching. BlackBerry is very good at approaching that specific market of business-oriented people and business-oriented, or people that are in business or people that want a business-oriented phone, something that they don't want to play on, but they just want to do, communication works on and stuff that they need to last them. Another quick news bit on BlackBerry right now, there's also the new BlackBerry slider is what people are calling it because we don't know for sure what it is. But what this phone is, I mean, well, like I said, we just said, we don't know what it is, but it's going to be a phone. They just teased it a little bit. There's only a couple pictures on the market about it, but Crackberry, I believe, has somebody did a mock-up of it just to see what the actual phone could look like because it's a really low-resolution photo. But the only complaint that most people really had with the Passport was the fact that it was a square screen. If you were to watch YouTube or anything of the sort on it, or take pictures, or take video that was actually in the 16:9 format, it would look really tiny because there would just be fat black bars on the sides, or on the top and bottom, or on the sides, depending on how you orient it. But it was not something that people really enjoyed, and I can attest to that when I had my play around with it. It was a little bit frustrating because it's just very small, really hard to see, and it's great for messaging by all means. You see a lot more. It doesn't feel like messages are a million miles long because it's a long screen. But what they're doing with the new BlackBerry slider is they're trying to address that issue where what it has is it's going to be nobody knows the real specs of it yet, but let's just say probably around a 5-inch display. Now it's actually curved on both sides like the S6 Edge is. Now who knows how BlackBerry is going to take advantage of that? I don't know, but it probably also promotes the strength of the screen a little bit, I would guess. But aside from that, it's obviously going to run BlackBerry OS and everything. But rather than being a slider like you would see where, hold up my phone for an example, and you would normally have the keyboard slide down from the back here in landscape mode, it actually is going to be a full-size screen that has a keyboard that slides down from the bottom. So I don't know, they can't make the screen too big, obviously, because it would feel a little bit fumbly in the hands. But if they do it right, that could work out really well because you're going to get a decent-sized keyboard, but you're not, a lot of people like to message in portrait mode rather than, doing sideways, and it's also going to be a better hinge that way, too. I think it's actually going to be a kind of cool design rather than having a smaller screen with a keyboard underneath it or a small screen with a slide. So that's just the quick news there, but I guess we can transition into something other than phones now, can't we?
Yeah, let's go to something people care about. So VR. Everyone's kind of known that Valve has been Valve cares about VR, and they've been wanting to see that push forward. There have been a lot of limitations with something like the Oculus, where it's been a very good device, and they've been constantly improving. They know exactly what they need to work on, and that they need to increase frame rate. They need to reduce motion blur, things like that, so you don't get motion sick. They need to increase resolution, and just make an overall better experience.
Right,
Well, Valve
right.
has partnered with HTC to make the Vive, which is a VR headset. It's under their rebrand, which is is their brand for everything that's not phones, pretty much, that HTC is doing. And if you look at it, ultimately what we're going to see come from this is this VR headset that Valve's been working on is downright amazing. So most VR headsets that they've been showing off recently, not this one, but other VR headsets like the Oculus and Sony's, have been around 900 by 1080p resolution per display.
Right,
This one's
right.
dual 1200 by 1080, and instead of being at 60 or 75 hertz, which is the Oculus, this one's running at a full 90 hertz, which is going to give you much higher refresh rate, which just ultimately means less motion blur, less motion sickness. Valve is claiming that 0% of people that use this get motion sickness.
Yeah. Which, I mean, Gabe
Which is
said that
huge.
himself, and if Gabe said that, since he's God, that must mean it's true.
Mm.
Now, I just wanted to note something on a little bit of a side note here. I just, I had somebody that commented on the post here when we posted it on our WordTech page about WordCast number 7, and somebody mentioned not everybody has Twitter though. So can we answer questions that are for people that are watching through Google Plus? Now, yes, we can. I apologize. I should have mentioned that. That if you just comment on the post on Google Plus, WordCast number 7, if you just comment on that post, we will answer them as soon as we can. The reason that I primarily use Twitter, and I actually am not a fan of Twitter, but the reason I use it is because it updates instantaneously, where Google Plus does a pretty good job of it, but once in a while it'll have a little hiccup where if I'm viewing the actual comment section, that you might post something and it might not appear unless I refresh the page. So that's why I was using Twitter. Okay, so now speaking of that, we actually just got something on Twitter that we're going to go ahead and answer. So actually, we have a couple things that just popped up on Twitter just now. So we're going to go on a side note here, but we'll get back to that VR here in just a moment. So somebody commented. All right, so All Life Matters. He posted on here. All right, what do you guys think about Battlefield Hardline not hitting 1080p 60 FPS? Almost a year or two in its cycle and no performance upgrade. So
I am honestly not surprised at all. The current gen consoles really aren't optimized for a game with that much going on to be 1080p 60,
right.
and their engine has never been the most efficient as well.
Right, that's true. Now, Frostbite, by all means, is a good engine. It's just not efficient. It's good at making things look good. I also wanted to clarify for anybody that was confused by that question. So there was some recent news that came around that Battlefield Hardline running on the next-gen consoles. So just so you guys don't confuse, Battlefield Hardline, when it comes up for PC, of course, you're going to run it at 1080p 60 FPS or more. But he's talking about the next-gen consoles, that the PS4 runs it at 900p and the Xbox One runs it at 720p, and then they upscale to 1080. That's something that is definitely frustrating. Now, obviously, like Daniel just explained, there's a good reason why. But we're already seeing that it's not a we're not even 2 years into the next gen consoles, which will probably be current gen, I should say, and they're not even going to be around for probably a total. They'll probably be around for about 4 years, and we're already seeing that they are running at basically the same.
But it's going to be just the exact same thing as it was with last gen, where you look at the games that came out at the beginning of last gen, the initial 360 and PS3 games, those look like crap compared to the end of.
Right. No, that's true. That's true because the optimization gets better.
Optimize for the hardware. I guarantee you by the end of the cycle, we're going to see beautiful looking 1080p 60 FPS games, just like we were getting for the longest time on. PS3 and Xbox 360 games weren't even actually running at 720p. They didn't really tell people this, but primarily they were running at like 540 or around there as the resolution on a lot of games, and it was being upscaled to 720 and 1080. A lot of games were doing that for at least for a while, and then they finally, as optimization went through, were able to increase those.
Right. No, I guess that's true. Still PC Master Race. If I do
Eh.
say that on a live stream. No, I mean, yeah, it's just anyway. Moving on though from that there, so that we can get back to VR here soon. So all right. So Alexander Johnston tweeted to us, any estimated time of arrival when the site will be fully operational again. And then he's saying might be an incentive for him to help out on videos. So in case you guys didn't know, Alexander Johnston is actually one of the first people that worked on WordTech with me. We kind of had the idea together, and we started the site together, and he started doing some videos and stuff. But he hasn't been doing it as much lately. He's just been busy and whatnot. But he is definitely considering starting to do videos for us again. So everybody go to our Twitter page and just star the crap out of that post that he posted, or that thing he tweeted to us, just so that he starts posting videos again. He does do a very good job. He knows what he's doing, and it would be fun. But yeah, any estimated time on arrival, or estimated time of arrival when the site will be fully operational again. I can't really give a full estimated time of arrival for that. I'm hoping in the next week or two, but we'll see. It's just taking a lot of work, and I've been really busy studying for finals for college and everything, because in case any of you didn't realize, I'm going to college right now for a cybersecurity degree, and so it takes a lot of studying. But I will try and get it back up and running. Now, technically, the site is up and running. It's just that it doesn't have any content on it right now. It's just the homepage, and it says under construction. But it is up and running, and we are going to try and post on it even before it's done. So I just wanted to let people know on that. But yeah, it's just taking time. Put it that way. So let's get back to VR stuff, though. Okay, so we were talking about the HTC Revive. I don't know if you mentioned that. It's not called the Vive. It's called the Revive.
It's called the Vive. Re is the portion of HTC making it. Now, as far as the rest of what I wanted to mention about the headset, so the other big feature with this that no other VR headset has had is with this device, there's the option to have these boxes that you would essentially place in the corners of an open room. And ultimately what this is for is positional tracking, so you can actually walk around, say, the cockpit of a ship or something, and actually get up and interact by looking at it and moving, and it giving you a full virtual reality experience. Now, this isn't something you'd want to use in your home. This would be more for something like an arcade or something, but it's still an insanely cool way to really show VR and show how far it's come.
Right, exactly. And I mean, I think also that it could be used in home at some point. If you look at or even business for developing, if you were developing, a model of a car, right? They could see a life-size version.
That would be much more realistic. In home, you'd pretty much have to have a dedicated empty room to it.
I suppose that's true. Right. Yeah, you would, or a good space. But I mean, even so, for the it would be really, really cool for business and whatnot, because they would they would be able to, you could, and I mean, with extra programming added behind that and whatnot, you could make it so that you see the other person. You could have multiple people collaborating on a project that is seen life-size, what it looks like of a car or computer case or a desk or whatever. It could be used for all kinds of things where somebody doesn't have to look at it on a monitor and zoom in and out anymore. They can go look at, this is what it's going to look like in real life. And we're getting to the point that we have the power, the GPU horsepower behind it, that they could develop it on the monitor, do a render of it, and then look at it, and they would see the utmost detail. It would look pretty much like the way the real thing will look, and just make design changes from there on out. And I think that that's a really, really cool idea. Yeah, so you mentioned the displays already, correct?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, so I think that's cool. 90 hertz.
Now, what I want to see a company integrate with VR headsets is have this gigantic area. Obviously, it would require the positional tracking to have a little more than 15 by 15 feet. But my dream for this would be a very, very large area with walls that can be moved for different things, and ultimately have a laser tag set up where you have VR to give you essentially a holodeck-esque experience, where they can just have very generic walls that would line up with what you'd be seeing in VR, but be modular enough to change, so you can have different maps.
Right, okay.
That would be really, really cool.
I think that would be awesome too. I agree with that. There's a lot that could be done with it, and it's one of those things where they're putting it in there so that things can be developed for it, and to see how good of an idea it is, just to push VR to that next step.
Yeah.
And I think I probably believe that nobody has gotten motion sickness from the display, or from the Vive VR headset. If you look at it, two 1080p displays, so that's already, you're getting a really high PPI per eye. So what you're going to be able to do is you're not going to have that screen door effect where, which happened with the original version of the Oculus Rift, is that you could see the dot pitch in between all the pixels, which is the space in between pixels for those of you that don't know, which is just really, really gross. But with this, you're getting really high resolution, as well as, you're only getting 90 hertz, but a lot of people don't realize that there's a lot more that goes into fluid motion than just the refresh rate and the frames per second. And I think 90 hertz is actually a really good sweet spot for something like this, because first off, if they get the latency low enough, that's what matters most, so that when
Hmm.
you move your head, it doesn't look like everything is behind where your head is supposed to be. But also the fact that, two 1080p displays running at 90 hertz, we actually have, like people that have gaming systems are actually going to have enough power to push the headset, push it to 90 frames per second. When you look at something that's trying to run at 120 or 144, especially if it was a dual display design, it's going to take a serious amount of graphics horsepower to push that. And even if you can afford the headset, your system's not going to be able to push it at decent settings, which doesn't defeat the purpose of it, but doesn't really make it any more satisfying.
Hmm.
So I think that 90 hertz is a really good sweet spot for now until GPU technology excels further.
Yeah.
So we have a tweet that I wanted to talk about. So um, I'm just not going to try and say the last name because I don't want to mess it up. But Miguel tweeted to us. He said, "What should I look for when purchasing a water cooling loop for my PC? They all seem to be the same, yet are priced different." Okay, so first off, I just want to say, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm assuming you're talking about all-in-one water cooling loops, such as like the Corsair H100i and the NZXT Kraken X61. So, assuming that you're talking about that and not talking about custom loop kits. Um, what I want to first brush on is, what should you look for when you're purchasing them. The biggest, most important thing when you're purchasing those really is just flat out going to be the radiator size. What size radiator can you fit in your case? That's going to make the biggest difference on performance. But there are other factors that you should note that you should bring into it, such as the length of the warranty, the thickness of the radiator. Most of them, the FPI, which is fins per inch, actually matters a lot too on the radiator, not just the thickness. But a lot of, not just the thickness and size, but a lot of them won't give out their FPI. And that also requires higher end fans, which usually either results in them giving you louder fans or giving you fans that don't cool as well. So a lot of them are going to be really close to the same FPI. I don't know what that would be off the top of my head, but I think it's going to be probably a lot of them around 5 to 8 FPI, fins per inch. So, the biggest thing really is to look for radiator size. But if you can find like an extra thick one, that's nice. Like if you have a very limited size, such as, say you have a single 120 millimeter slot, then you want to go with something like the Kraken X31, which is a extra thick single 120 millimeter radiator cooler, all-in-one cooler, which is pretty awesome. And that's going to get you cooling not equivalent, but very close to their to like a H100i or something that would be a dual 120, just because of it being thicker, as long as you have fans that can keep the static pressure behind that radiator. The other thing to look for is really just design. I mean, you can look at, some of them don't look very good. Some of them, like the Krakens, they'll look really, really nice, the NZXT Krakens with the RGB LEDs and everything like that. And so, that's something that I would look into. But the biggest thing is radiator size, definitely. The variable speed pumps that the Kraken X61 and X41 have, and I think the X31 have as well, aren't going to make the most massive difference in performance. They're mostly, I think, designed to tackle the problem that some people would have. They could hear the pump over a lot of their other fans, and so in this situation, the pump can actually be tuned down. Pump speed doesn't really provide any performance improvement. And when you're doing a custom loop, pump speed matters just because it depends on how big of a loop you plan to do. So I hope that answered your question. If it didn't, go ahead and tweet to us again, and I will get to it more. And just reminding anybody else that's watching, tweet your questions to WordTech Reviews. If you don't have a Twitter account, then you can go ahead and go to our Google Plus page, probably where you found this video, and comment on there. I'm going to be checking that periodically. But Twitter is the best way, just because it updates quickest, even though we don't really prefer it. So going back on topic to what we were talking about, so we talked about the VR headset. Do you have anything else to brush up on that, Daniel?
Not on that VR headset. Now, there is some recent news that's come out about Sony's Project Morpheus headset. They've done a lot of work. They've dramatically upgraded the headset. It was already a lot better at the time than the Oculus was at the time. But Oculus then did announce their upgrade shortly thereafter, and so it passed it. But Project Morpheus is looking really good, and what's really insane about Project Morpheus is you have to think, they're making this run, and the games still look good, and it be running at about 1080, like 1080p-ish, and this is being powered from the PS4.
Right, yeah. It
All
shows
of the
potential
tracking
of
is
PS4.
there's more that can be pulled out of the PS4 with actual optimization, because a lot of the stuff that's been shown off so far is all done by Sony, and so they obviously know the tricks to the hardware that they designed.
Right.
And that's a big factor of it. But I mean, ultimately, this headset, it's slated. They've actually finally set a time period, unlike any other company working on VR right now. They said first half of next year it will be launching for consumers.
Right. Okay, that's really interesting, actually. I think it's cool to have that. I hope it's something that they implement that can kind of link along with PCs as well, but they probably won't, at least not for the first model. What do you think?
I don't think they will at all. It's a console accessory.
I guess so.
That's like saying, why doesn't their camera work with it? Part of it is because they've designed so much with the PS4 around it. I mean, for one, you have to have the PlayStation camera for the VR headset to work, because that's how it does the positional tracking. Just like with the Oculus, you need the camera that comes with it. When it comes to the controller support, they've added the light on the back of the PS4 controller. The reason it never can shut off is because of VR.
Okay. Right.
That is why they left that as an always-on feature. The people running the VR team confirmed that they said, hey, as much as I know people are going to want it shut off, we need this always on. Yes, they can dim it or something, but we need this always on for VR games to properly work.
Right, which makes a lot of sense. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's been so much put into it. I don't see it coming as a PC thing. I foresee it being primarily a console thing, but still, it's exciting. That's going to be one of the probably quickest things to bring VR more towards consumers.
Right.
So that's where it's going to really, I mean, once people use it, once people get into it, they're going to be more invested, they're going to be willing to spend more money. That's going to push Valve, that's going to push Oculus or Facebook to invest more faster to get that out to market sooner.
Absolutely, yeah. So I think, I agree with you. I think that's really awesome. And I think that it's, I like the name too, but I think it's something that could push VR into
and they had to modify
market.
They had to modify one of their demos, because one of the demos was a game where you were shooting, and they had to take out the ability to kill yourself because people didn't like that.
Oh, that's hilarious. I like that. That's funny. Okay, so then I guess we could jump on to the next topic, I guess.
So next thing up, Valve came out of the gate hard with announcements. They had the VR headset. They announced their Steam controller, which is they showed off the final version, which is going to be about $50. They showed off some Steam boxes, which are actually coming out soon. And then the other big thing is the Steam Link. So for those that don't know, Steam already supports game streaming. If you have a good computer and you have another device in your home that you'd want to play on, but you don't want to move your computer to the living room or something like that, or you just want to game on your laptop, you can stream the game via Steam through a local internet connection. What Steam Link is it's a little $50 box that just all it's designed for is streaming Steam games to something like your TV. So you can play your PC games in a more console-like environment, just more on your TV without having to go and build another PC.
Right, which is pretty cool, because that's something that people have always been frustrated with, is having to build another PC to use Steam streaming.
Yeah.
Because the Steam streaming service, honestly, I mean, I've tried it out. It's absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
Go ahead, though. You were still talking.
Yeah. What's nice is, so this device, it has Ethernet. I believe it. Yeah, it has Ethernet, Wi-Fi, a couple USB ports, and then HDMI out. And it supports 1080p 60 hertz So there's 1080p 60 FPS gameplay, and it's very low latency as with Steam streaming in general. And it works with Steam clients that are running on Windows, Mac, and Linux. So pretty much if you have a game on Steam and you have a device that can play that game, you can buy this device and play it on a different screen. Think of it
Right.
like the PlayStation TV for Steam, but it only does the streaming aspect of it.
Right, right. Which I think it's a smart way of doing it because if you
Yeah,
look at like the like you were saying about whatever you just called it, um,
PlayStation TV.
but yeah, PlayStation TV. I lost my train of thought. But yeah, the PlayStation TV. It's not that great. I mean, it's cool, but it doesn't stream from your PlayStation. It streams from. It's kind of like NVIDIA Grid.
PlayStation TV actually has some functionality to stream from your PS4.
It does.
Yes, it does.
I did not know that. Okay,
PlayStation
well,
already
I
had
was,
made the feature for Vita. Literally, the PlayStation TV
I
is a
knew the Vita had
Vita
it.
display.
Okay, well, yeah, I knew that. Okay, I was wrong about that. Then I didn't realize it could
Yeah,
stream games from the PS4. Okay, so
yeah.
that's really cool. The nice thing is though, what my point was initially or eventually going to get to there was that you're going to have access to the power behind whatever gaming rig you may have, which chances are if you have a gaming rig, it's going to be substantially more powerful than the consoles. You're going to be getting the quality of your gaming rig, but in your living room TV, kind of like a console, which is really cool. I mean, and whether or not, you like consoles or not, that's your choice, that's your opinion. But, when you look at it, I mean, PC is capable of pushing higher frame rates with better graphics, and if that's something you care about, then this is pretty awesome. That's something that I would be interested in if I had a living room that I wanted to play games at. I prefer sitting here. Um, but yeah, okay. So the other thing I don't know if Daniel, if you already said it, but it's 1080p 60 FPS. Did you mention
Yeah,
that? Yeah,
yeah.
which I think is really cool because you even look like if you look at the new NZXT Doko, which I don't know if any of you have heard of that. It's the I believe it's spelled Doko. Yeah, yeah, Doko, and what it is the Doko is a streaming box. It's $100, and what it does is it does the same thing that what you were talking about with the Steam Link box, but it's substantially more money, and it's only capable of streaming 30 FPS. So it'll stream 1080p 30 FPS, but that's not that great. I mean, it doesn't. Of course, it's a very, very, very consistent 30 FPS. The big problem with running 30 FPS on a PC, which ends up, even though it's still not a good frame rate, but 30 FPS, let's face it, would look better on consoles than PC because PC has more of a stuttering in there, whereas consoles will usually keep it at a solid 30 FPS. And this is going to be a solid 30 FPS, so it doesn't look horrible. And it does have one small advantage over the Steam Link box, and that's the fact that it streams your entire desktop, not just your Steam games. Um, it's so you can do anything on it, although there is a little bit of latency, and it's a first touch onto doing something like that, but the Steam Link just makes a lot more sense unless you really need a full desktop far away, which chances are you don't, especially because it's half the price. So, which I don't know if you've tried Steam and home sharing before, have you, Daniel?
Yeah, a little bit. I tried it though when it was very, very first in beta, so it was.
Okay. Okay, because I tried it, I think it was 4 months ago or 5 months ago, so not, when it was actually good. I built a client to PC, and he ended up he was going to buy one of the same games that I had on my Steam account, so I just logged in on my Steam account and downloaded it so it was ready for him when he signed in on his Steam account. And after I built his rig, I signed in and I downloaded it, but before it was downloading, I realized that it was going to let me try and stream games, and so I tried streaming games like Firefall and whatnot to test it out. And here's my main rig right here in front of me, a triple monitor setup. And over there to my side on the table, which you guys can't see, but it's just back here a little ways, it's just a corner table. And I have it over here. I set up the client PC, and I networked them both in onto the same switch. So, of course, they had the lowest latency possible. But I was trying it out, and I was actually using the keyboard and mouse over there while looking at the display on my main system to see if I could feel any of that latency. Also trying it, looking it on their display as well, and it felt like I was at my computer. There was basically no noticeable latency. I mean, if you really, 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 really tried on some FPS titles, you could maybe see a little, but it's not enough to affect, your gameplay experience unless you're going to be doing pro-grade gaming, which honestly, if you're doing pro gaming, you're not going to be using, you're not going to be sitting on your living room. You're going to be sitting on a high-end PC directly connected with the monitor anyway. So it works really well. So when they say 1080p, 60 FPS, low latency, they really, really, really mean it. It's beautiful. Best stuff I've ever seen.
Yeah. So next up then we have
Well,
something else that can do game streaming.
before you continue with that, there is one other thing that's cool, or two other things that we should talk about Steam. Do you want to go with those first, or do you want to talk about the NVIDIA thing next?
What other thing with Steam?
The controller, which I had a little bit
I
more
already
detail.
kind of mentioned.
Yeah, you did mention it, and then Steam boxes.
I mean, Steam boxes are just PCs running Linux. There's nothing to go
There are
into.
PCs running Steam OS, but what's cool is they're coming out with a lot of them.
There's nothing to go into there.
I mean,
Here's what it is. They took some PC components, they put them into a small case, and then they put SteamOS on it, which anyone can download.
right.
That's all
No,
it is.
I agree.
It's a prepackaged PC, just like any other prepackaged gaming PC. That's all there really is.
But it's as simple as a console.
No,
If
it's
you
not.
look at it.
No. Because no matter what, the thing with consoles is that you set it up and it plays. With that, you're still gonna have, games are gonna try and set up graphics, but you know that there's always gonna be tweaks that will improve performance or ruin performance. There isn't any of that simplification with console.
Right,
That's where console stands to win.
But I mean, if you look at it, it's still so.
And there's
The argument that PC is too complicated to navigate and stuff is gone because
I'm
you
not
have
saying
Steam
that it's
OS.
complicated.
I know you're not, but some people argue about that. But the other thing is, if you look at it, auto game settings have gotten good enough now, for the most part, especially with NVIDIA products, that you're able to get those perfectly smooth, good settings right out of the box, making it so simple so that the consumer has the option there, but they don't need to mess with it.
The other thing, though, is SteamOS isn't going to have the ability to do NVIDIA or AMD's
Optimization.
yeah.
That's
It's going to
true.
be because it's running Linux. It's going to have to go with whatever the game's presets are, and I know from experience, game presets on 99.999% of games are absolute shit.
You make a very good point. That's true. Okay.
Especially if you have a high-end device.
Yeah.
If anything above a budget PC, it's gonna automatically lower it. It sets it at there's a maximum settings that the game will go up to.
Right. That's true. But they are going in the right direction, I guess, towards this step, because I think that's Valve's end goal is to kind of unify gaming onto their platform. Not because they want it to be open, but I think that their goal is eventually to unify it so that there is no more exclusive bullshit. It's just gaming is gaming, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, as long as Sony and Microsoft are still in business, there's going to be exclusive games.
I don't know if there always will be, because eventually
as long as they're still
gonna be...
making games, there will be exclusive games, because if they don't make exclusive games, there will be no reason to buy their consoles, and they will stop making games.
Okay, right. Okay, because what I was actually just about to get at there was that if nobody's buying their consoles, they will stop.
People are
But
going to keep buying their consoles.
I guess it's true. So, okay. The other thing, though, is the Steam controller, and that's actually something a little bit more to brush up on. The new Steam controller is really interesting, because Steam had a very hard task at hand, and some people are agreeing with the controller and some people aren't, but they had a really hard task to conquer with this, because it couldn't just be your standard, Xbox-like controller, because their goal was to get it so that this controller, you can play your RTS games and your MOBAs and whatnot with it on PC without having without having a mouse and a keyboard, which is a really hard thing, and I think in my opinion, I think they accomplished it, and I think they did a really good job. It still takes a ton of getting used to, though. So I'm going to go ahead and do a screen share here, so people can see this. Now, this is courtesy of Steam. So I just want of Steam. So I just want you guys to understand that. So there we go. Okay, so right here is Steam, and yes, I'm logged in. That's me. So if you guys want to add me, go ahead. But anyway, with the Steam controller, you probably already right off the bat think, it looks weird. Now, the first complaint people had was that the buttons were down here. Now, I don't think that's a huge complaint. It's just a move of the buttons. It's not super far off of what a lot of other ones are. So I mean, you look at like so uh anyway, what was I gonna say? Oh yes, okay. So if you look at it, it's got extra buttons on the back side of it, and they don't really show those here very well. But it's got a touchpad right over here, and then a touchpad D-pad over here. And the touchpad is just designed to give you a more tactile like control over it, um, which I think is a good idea. Um, it's it allows you to play games that require a little bit more fine movement than a joystick can give you because it's kind of like a laptop touchpad, but it is definitely more accurate than an actual joystick because let's face it, most people when they're playing with an analog stick as they push the analog stick all the way, they don't usually do fine-tuned movements. And I mean, some people do after getting used to it, but it depends. Like I know when I jump onto console after playing on PC for a long time, I wiggle my crosshairs back and forth across the enemy's face, even with some of the auto aim stuff, and that's this gives you the more fine-tuned movement to give it so that you don't have a huge disadvantage. And what I was getting at with the back too is the back has extra buttons so that you can get all of your key bindings and everything for the more complicated games on here. But we're gonna go ahead and get back on subject. So next thing, go ahead.
So next up we have NVIDIA's Shield. So they actually launched the Shield a while ago, and then they changed the name of that to the Shield Portable, which is their mobile Android device that has a controller built in. And then they came out with the Shield Tab, and now they have the just the Shield. What this is a home console device. Essentially, it's a home Android TV device. It's still running Android, and it's $199, which is a lot more than the previous other Android TV devices have been.
But there's a reason.
Yeah. This thing has some fucking power. So this is running a Tegra X1 processor, which has about twice the power of the Xbox 360 and about 6 times the RAM at far less power consumption, meaning you're going to get they're actually porting over console games to this system on a chip, this tiny little Android TV device. I mean, they have already announced that they're working on Borderlands all the way up through the pre-sequel, the newest one, that'll be running natively on the system. Crysis 3, Doom 3, they already have ports like Portal, Half-Life, and they're just continuing. NVIDIA, what they've been doing is they've been working with developers. They've been actually just, instead of making developers port the games to Android, they've hired developers of their own. They've taken the source code from those developers and taken their own time to port it to the system. You have games like Crysis 3, which look better on the Shield's gameplay demo than they did on the 360 running, and it's amazing. And this is just the start of their port. All of them are saying by the time that the game actually launches, performance is going to increase even more.
Yeah.
So that aspect of it is insane. It's just pushing Android gaming. On top of that, though, it's also a 4K at 60 hertz device for Android TV. So when apps start to support 4K that are running on Android TV, it already has the hardware. It has HDMI 2.0. So you'll be able to do like Netflix in 4K and things like that if you have a 4K display.
Yeah, which is cool because it has the power to do that with running the X1. So, yeah, it's very cool.
Yeah. On top of that, other hardware, it has 2 USB 3.0 ports, so you'll be able to plug in external storage. You'll be able to plug in keyboard and mouse even if you want. And it has it only has 16 gigs of internal storage, but it does have micro SD card support. So you can buy a 120 gig if you want. Plus, you can buy a 1 terabyte external hard drive if you want.
Yeah, right. Which I think that was kind of the point of putting the 16 gigs of storage, which sounds really low for a console. It's just they're rushing up. They're trying to make it as cheap as possible and as powerful as possible because those other things can be added later, whether that be storage, which sure you can add storage later with micro SD or like you said an external hard drive because it would work with those. But another thing is a lot of it is behind the grid streaming service, which I think this is more of a grid streaming box than it is a console. A game or a system that's designed to hold games locally.
Yeah, this is just more of a general media streaming device in general.
Right, right. Which I'm impressed by the fact, I mean, Grid has been around for a while. For those of you that don't know what it is, Grid is a streaming service by NVIDIA where they basically have high-end servers that are dedicated to the task of doing games for you, and you have to pay for it. It was free for a while because it was in beta, but you have to pay for it. But I mean, obviously that makes sense. They have to pay for the hardware, and what it does is it allocates you basically a certain amount of power, so you're going to be getting consistent gameplay and you have settings that you can change, but it only lets you change so many. It doesn't want, you're not running all your games at maxed out, but the point is just to get PC gaming even simpler. And the latency is fairly low. Of course, it's not as low as Steam and home streaming because this is streaming from a server elsewhere, not in your home, but it will do 1080p 60 FPS. And I think that that's something that
Mm-hmm.
that the why am I losing my train of thought now? The Shield is getting at is going to be sorry. So the Shield is going to be getting at promoting Grid even more, promoting that service of getting games to stream to people that don't want to have to pay for their high-end PC. They can pay monthly for it, because if you look at the like Xbox Live Gold as well as PlayStation Plus, but particularly Xbox Live Gold, you're not getting a massive amount for the money you're paying. And I mean, of course, you have access to the servers and everything, but this is, it would be a subscription-based thing that wouldn't be substantially more expensive than what you're paying for like PlayStation Plus or Xbox Live Gold, but is getting you a better service because you're getting the actual game streaming to you, and the work is being done elsewhere. So you're able to get better gameplay.
The other thing, though, to note on how this all works is there's multiple purchase options. So there's 2 different tiers of streaming, which will gain you access to different amounts of games. And then there's also, for games that are newer games, you will have to just outright buy the same price you would pay for like a PC version or a console version. But what's cool is any device that supports grid streaming will support playing these games. So if you buy a game, as long as pretty much NVIDIA is around, grid streaming will probably stick around, meaning you buy a game and you can stream it on any device that supports that. I mean, they're going to have new games. Unlike previous game streaming services, they'll have new games right out of the gate. Like, they already announced they're going to have Witcher 3 on launch day and Arkham Knight on launch day, which is huge.
Yeah, yeah, no, those are, yeah, for sure. I'm excited for Arkham Knight, speaking of which. But, yeah, so I think it's very, very cool. I'm happy with NVIDIA doing that. You want to brush up on the Titan X a little bit, though, before we jump on to the next subject?
I'll let you do that.
Okay. So, and if you guys have watched my previous streams, you guys know that I have some problems with the Titan, particularly the Titan C, not the other ones, because of the price point that they're running these at. But the Titan X, if it comes in at the right price point, which we don't know yet, it could be anywhere between $1,000 and $1,500, we don't know for sure. But if it comes in at the right price point, it could actually be something that makes more sense than the previous Titans because of how powerful it is. Now, if it ends up being $1,500, it's the same situation.
There was a leak indicating $999.
Okay, that would be pretty impressive, because what it is the Titan, after doing more research on it, because a lot of people try and classify it as a workstation and gaming card, but in reality, literally what it is a really beefed up gaming card, both on the VRAM side as well as being able to handle some workstation processes. And Daniel, actually, this is almost like a direct quote from him, mentioned to me when I was talking about it. It's the perfect, YouTube streamer or YouTube video editors and gamers card. It's good because it's going to be able to do really heavy-duty rendering work and the heavy-duty tasks that, I mean, in reality, YouTubers and stuff aren't throwing, super, crazy high resolution 10-bit color 3D renderings onto the thing. They're doing heavy video editing and other stuff like that. And it's very good for that because it games really well, and it's very, very good at doing rendering for videos for like Adobe Premiere or whatever software you use. If you're actually looking to do real workstation stuff with like 10-bit color and stuff, the card is basically pointless. The Quadro series and W9000 series from NVIDIA and AMD respectively absolutely crush it, and they're more expensive for a reason. They're able to handle the higher color resolutions and whatnot. But it is still a good card that in this day and age actually has kind of a point. If you're just getting it for gaming, you should just go with a 980. I mean, the extra VRAM doesn't help with gaming, so you should just go with a 980 or a 980 Ti when that comes out. But if you need it, to do lots of workstation type tasks as well as gaming, it's really good for that. Did I seem to catch that about right, Daniel? You know a little more about it than me.
Yeah, that lines up. Now, and there's no way to know how accurate this is, but there actually have been some leaked benchmarks supposedly. And right now it's putting it, for the most part, it's hitting just about equal to or just under the R9 295X2 in
Right.
benchmarks that are at least optimized for dual GPU, which isn't surprising. And then if you look at going up to something like the the four-way SLI, there's an actual legitimate, pretty substantial increase in performance. I'm looking at what I'm looking at right now on 3D Mark 11. The Titan X was getting about 22,900, whereas the four-way SLI got all the way up to 63,000. So it is an actual,
Right.
at least substantial performance gain from multiple, rather than previous gens where it's been like a 10% increase.
Okay. Yeah. Right. Right. It's a better design.
Yeah.
It's newer and better, but not just a refresh.
Yeah, you're looking at about a 278% increase by going up to four-way SLI in 3D
Wow.
Mark. And that's in their performance. In 3D Mark Extreme, it was actually a 427% difference.
That's interesting. That's surprising. I wonder if there was something that threw it off there, because that is technically impossible. But anyway, right. Yeah, I think it actually could be a good card. I'm really excited to see the R9 390X from AMD, because I feel like if any of the rumored benchmarks and rumored specs and everything are true for the 390X, which they appear to be, from many sources, it's looking like the Titan's finally going to have a direct competitor when it comes to gaming performance. Now,
Yeah, if you try to do anything involving double point precision, you're gonna want a Titan if you're doing gaming as well.
right, exactly. Either that, or you're going to want just a straight up Quadra or W1000 card and a gaming card. You could do both. But yeah,
Not in the same computer, not if you want.
no, right. You would need two separate systems. Yes, that's what I meant. But right. So I think it seems like maybe the 390X will be more of a competitor directly to the 980 Ti, since it's specifically going to be for gaming. We'll see. That's probably where its price point's going to sit around more, because usually that usually is what the Titan X that's usually what the Titan whatever is it's just the X80 Ti beefed up with more VRAM and whatnot, and so you actually get pretty much no more gaming performance out of the thing unless something does support double point precision, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think that AMD might, because the 780 Ti, we can be honest, was better than the 290X when it comes to performance, but I think that we're going to see that maybe the 980 Ti might be stomped this time. We'll see, and by stomped I just mean surpassed.
Can someone tell me why the 780 Ti is more expensive than the 980? Still.
Is it really right now? Oh my goodness.
Most places, when I saw it, was still like the 780 Ti didn't really drop in price.
That is kind of odd, because I guess it's still going to cost them the same manufacturing cost, because Maxwell helped them reduce their manufacturing costs some, didn't it?
Yeah, but you'd think they would just clearance these out at a lower cost.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what AMD is.
Most of them, at this point, they're out of stock, but I mean, even then, before they actually sold out, pricing $729 on this EVGA one, $758 on this EVGA one, $709 on this MSI.
Right. Huh.
Yeah.
That's odd. Okay, so I guess, do you want to go on to the next topic? A little bit more of a couple of fun topics to talk about.
Oh yeah, let's talk about Apple.
Let's do it, guys.
For those that didn't see the news from Apple's Spring Forward event, they announced two major product announcements. They brought back the MacBook line, so they've had the MacBook, and then they announced the Pro, and then the Air, and then they got rid of the MacBook, and now they have a MacBook again. But this MacBook is lighter than the MacBook Air, thinner than the MacBook Air, slower than the MacBook Air, and only has one port. And we'll get into that one port thing in a moment, because that's going to be the elephant in the room.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
Overall general specs, it has from what I've read, a really amazing 12-inch, 16 by 10, 2304 by 1440p resolution Retina display.
Yeah, yeah. People are seeming to love that display.
A completely redesigned trackpad. So ultimately, the laptop was too thin to have a trackpad with a legitimate physical click. And on top of that, Apple didn't really like the whole idea of you could only click on the bottom. So what they've done is they redesigned the trackpad completely. They have a new trackpad. It's called a Force Touch trackpad. What it is two major upgrades. One of which is it has the haptic engine, same thing that the Apple Watch that they announced a while ago, like that feature of it where it has like taps and things at different power,
Right.
Different forces of feedback, and ultimately, from the initial reviews, at least on the base setting, because you can actually adjust how much feedback you get from this now, which is pretty cool.
Yeah,
But,
I like the idea of that.
yeah. On the base setting, though, it pretty much anywhere that you tap on the trackpad to do a click, it feels like you're doing a legitimate physical click. That's how down they have that feedback. So on that aspect, that's really cool. That's really innovative. It's just a piece of glass, a touch-sensitive thing like you'd have on a display, yet it can give you the feedback of an actual click, which a lot of rumors are suggesting they may integrate something like that into the next iPhone. I don't know how they would do that because it uses an electromagnet. I don't know how they do that with hardware. I'm sure they can figure it out, but think about that. You have a touchscreen where everything you tap feels like a physical click. That would be amazing.
It would be interesting. Yeah, yeah, it would be cool.
Yeah.
It's a good design of haptic feedback.
Yeah. The other major upgrade to the trackpad is it has pressure sensitivity. So you can, if you're doing like a drawing or signing your name or something, you can have it actually look like you'd sign your name with like a ballpoint pen or something where it has like really cool pressure sensitivity, so you can do like different speeds and swipes rather than the thing that iPhones and iPads currently do where they just kind of go based off of speed to generate a guess on pressure. This actually has pressure sensitivity, and beyond that, they've added a third type of click. So you have your left click and your right click, and then you have your force click. Which what this does is, say you force click on a word, it's going to do a similar thing to what you'd see on Chrome on your Android phone, where if you highlighted a word, it would give you the option to search for it. So you can like force click on a word, and what that will do is it'll just pull up a definition. If you force click on an address, it'll pull up like a little pop-up window for the map if you want to.
Well, what I liked too was about what the pressure sensitivity is when you're scrubbing through videos.
Yes.
You move the mouse onto the forward button, and you push, and the harder you push, the faster it scrubs through the video. So you can really get to the spot you want instead of trying to drag it and fiddle with it and all that. I think it's cool.
Yeah. So they did a really good job on the trackpad. And by the way, this trackpad is being brought to the 13-inch MacBook Pro as well.
And I think the MacBook Air too, right?
No.
No? Okay, the Air's not getting it? Okay.
Just the MacBook Pro for now. I'm sure the actual, when they come out with a full revision rather than the incremental upgrade that they announced for all the new stuff, I'm sure it'll have it, but I think it was just the Pro.
Okay.
Beyond that, the next thing that they did with this, because of how thin it was, they had to completely redesign the keyboard. So for those that don't know, most laptops that have a chiclet keyboard have a scissor switch, so it'll actually like go down. And what they've done is they've essentially come up with they call it a butterfly switch. So instead of it having two parts that cross and go down, it has two parts that are like this, or one part that's like this that can bend and it goes like this. The point behind that is both it's smaller, so it gives you more travel in the same amount of space. Ultimately, they can make a smaller switch that still has some travel. But beyond that, if you're hitting on the edge of the key, on chiclet keys, it would in some cases bottom out without it actually recognizing the press due to the fact that it was so small and there was so little travel. Because of this, you can get like essentially a consistent press. No matter where you press it, it's going to feel like you're pressing the full button.
Yeah, which is pretty cool. I mean, from what I've heard from testing it out and stuff, it feels like any other chiclet keyboard, which doesn't sound good. But at the same time, you guys have to realize just how thin it is that the fact that it feels like, you know, a high-end chiclet keyboard on a high-end laptop, but it's in such a small space is what shows that it's actually nice.
Yeah.
So
That
Apple's kind of getting hardware right, I guess we can say,
mhm.
in some situations here.
Yeah, and they got rid of the rubber dome switches. They've come up with a new switch. It does use metal, but it's not mechanical. It uses from what it looked like in the image that I saw. It was like a flexible piece of metal that would move, similar to how a dome switch would move to make contact with its point. But it's thinner, it's better quality, it's going to last longer, and that's really all there is to that part of it.
Right,
Um,
right. Okay.
Now let's go. Go ahead.
Sorry, we have a comment. 2 minutes ago, somebody commented, if I recall correctly, Lenovo and another company both have higher resolution and thinner laptops with more powerful processors than the MacBook coming out. They also have more ports. Okay, everything that you said
They
there
do
was
not have
correct
a
except the thinner part. It
Yeah.
is the MacBook is the new MacBook is too thin for a USB port. It's thinner. It's like the exact size of the internal of a USB port. It's super, super, super slim,
Mhm.
which whether or not you feel like that's a good sacrifice for it, which we're gonna get in later.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, no, you are right. There are companies that have higher resolution displays on very thin laptops. Dell also has their XPS 13, which is a beautiful laptop um, with more powerful processors. Now that is speaking of processors, that's something that we want to do brush up on a little bit. Spec wise, the MacBook, let's put it this way, it's really good at web browsing. Uh,
It's so it's running an Intel Core M, which is something that you'll see in things like some of the newer Lenovo Yogas. I mean,
is
it's
it?
the
Is
same
it?
thing. So not they have new versions of the Yoga that are running M, and then some that are running the standard Core I series.
Okay, right, right. But isn't the M the normally the Core M series is the mobile series and the Core U series is the Ultrabook series?
They've kind of the Core M is the f chip that's designed for computers that don't want to have fans, pretty much.
Okay, okay. So it's the
And
the
that's
Bravo M then.
Yeah, and that's the other thing is this MacBook doesn't have any fans. Like it's gonna run whisper quiet because it's not gonna be.
Literally, yeah, literally silent.
Yeah, there's no noise that's gonna be generated from this. It has no moving parts, and it's going to still stay cool because of the fact that I mean this processor only uses 5 watts.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's incredible. And
Um,
before we continue with that, I just want to throw it to anybody before any of you watching this get annoyed and start thinking that we're Apple fanboys or something. Don't worry, we're saying all the good things first. So just hold out.
yeah.
Bear with us.
Now processor speed wise though, this thing runs at a mere 1.1 gigahertz. The top tier model runs at 1.3. And then if you're doing single core applications, it can boost up to 2.9.
Which is still fairly low considering a lot of other ultrabooks boost over 3.
Yeah.
So it's
Um,
very, very, very low clock speed. Now,
this
sorry, go ahead.
this is the laptop for the person in your family that would just be browsing the web. That's literally what this is for, is for people that like Apple products but don't do anything other than browse the web on a laptop. They
Well,
don't
and
care
do like
about.
documents and stuff. It can handle that,
Yeah. I
and
mean,
like
well,
video chat, video.
I mean, it can handle a decent amount. I mean, it's not going to do, in-depth video editing or anything, but it'll be able to run, I mean, even Apple's like iMovie and stuff, it'll be able to run that
Yeah, I
fine.
mean, it'll do media
Mhm.
consumption is really what it's for, I guess we
Yeah.
should say. But it's very good at web browsing. I do like to see the 8 gig of RAM,
Mhm.
just because even for me, like for me, I use 10 gigs of RAM when I'm web browsing on my system. Now, of course, I have a lot of other stuff running too, but I mean, I can easily with a web browser push the web browser to using over 4 gigs of RAM.
Mhm.
And that's something that 8 gigs is a good point on a web browsing machine, where you'll have enough space RAM-wise left over to do a few other things as well. So, but yeah, I don't know. The processor on this thing, it's not designed to get things done. Actually, I believe it was MKBHD mentioned what he called the new MacBook. He said it's a tablet without a touchscreen and a keyboard attached, or
Yeah.
something similar to that is what he said. And
Yeah.
that's about right.
I feel like this is, if you were to look at a direct competitor in the market to this product, I would say it would be the Chromebook Pixel.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
A
No,
very,
that would
very
be true.
high-end web browser.
Right, right. Yeah, you make a good point. Although you still have the argument behind the Chromebook Pixel that it pays for itself in storage
Yeah,
because of the 1 terabyte Google
but
Drive.
this also actually has storage.
Okay,
Chromebook Pixel
right.
had what, 32 gigs? This has
I think it
base.
was might have been 64. I can't remember,
Okay.
but
Oh, that no, that was on the LTE only model.
okay.
Yeah. This has a base 256 gigabytes of SSD and then a maximum of 512 gigabytes of
Right.
SSD storage. So at least they're not doing the thing that they've also done previously, where they started with the base of 128, which they're still doing on all of their other product lines, which is completely fucking stupid.
Yeah, 128 is just not enough. It's just
Yeah.
not. Ugh. But
Um,
yeah, the SSD is going to help it feel really,
mhm,
really swift as well.
yeah.
There's going to be there's no bottleneck in this system. Put it that way. I mean, if anything, the processor will bottleneck the SSD.
Mhm. Now, though, the next thing to go over, as far as with how small this laptop is, you might be thinking, okay, there's not really much room for a big battery. Well, they've done a lot to leave room for the battery. So for one, the logic board, essentially the parts where all of the internals for the computer, other than the battery, is 1/3 the size of the MacBook Air.
Right.
They have
Yeah,
completely cut that down.
which was
It's
already small in the MacBook Air.
Yeah, the MacBook Air 13 inches logic board is wider than this MacBook.
Yeah. Which, if you look at
So
the logic board too, by the way, people, there's, there some laptops have a motherboard. A logic board is essentially doing the same thing. It's really tiny. It's what you would see
yeah,
in like a phone or something. And this logic board in particular is what you would see in a tablet. It's
yeah.
very small if you look at it. I'll see if I can actually pull up a picture of it.
Go to Apple, or I'll send you a link. I got it.
Okay.
Let me pull something up.
Yeah, just throw me the link and then I'll go ahead and throw it up on here. Um, so did you mention the battery life actual time?
Not yet. I'm still going into everything.
Okay.
The next thing that I wanted to mention, so and in the link, you'll just want to scroll down and you'll see the diagram of the
Right.
comparison. As far as the battery goes, though, so what they've done, because they have so little space, but so much space because they made that board smaller. Ultimately, what they've done is as I mentioned earlier in this, they've kind of gone through and redesigned how the battery is made. So normal battery, you have just a rectangle. With this, they've actually taken the essentially set up where instead of having just a straight up rectangle, it has little layers. And it actually can be different shapes. So what they've done is they take the full piece of aluminum that they use for the unibody construction. They carve out spots so that it has like as much room as they can physically fit for the battery, and then they
Here.
stuff as much battery as they can into it.
Yeah, exactly. All right, here, I found a better one than the what's on Apple's site that it sells. It's a photo of it, so I'm going to go ahead and screen share this right now. This is courtesy of geek.com, searching on Google. So let me find the right one. All right, here we go. So here's an actual picture of the internals of it. I hope that's okay quality looking. But you see, all the black is battery. Down here is where the touchpad is. So you have the touchpad around here, and you have the haptic feedback motor in here and everything. And then over here, this is the logic board. This right here is essentially everything that the system can do. That is its power. That is where its processor is. That's its RAM. Yeah, that's its processor, its RAM, its hard drive, and everything. It's all in that. And that little section there. So they left a lot of room for battery because again, this is designed to be the ultimate web browsing machine and document writing and for like students and whatnot. So just to show you guys that is a very small logic board.
Yeah.
So
now, speaking of so much battery and web browsing, battery life on this, you're looking at about 9 hours of browsing the web on Wi-Fi, and then you're also looking at about up to 10 hours of like offline movie playback. So 9 to 10 hours of screen on time is ultimately what we're looking at.
Yeah, which is actually really good. So
especially for how small it is.
Yeah, and you look and how light it is. It only weighs 2 pounds.
Mm.
So I mean, it's good for students that want to take notes and like Macs, and it's good for word processing and document browsing and movie watching and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now we get though to the
problem.
The thing with this Mac. So it has an entire 2 ports. It has one for audio, like a microphone jack, and then one for literally everything else. So the only reason this port is actually on here in the first place is because Apple didn't want to give up wired charging. They even said that they want the focus of this device is a wireless device. They left the port on there because there isn't a better way to charge than wired as of right now.
Right.
So what they've done was they figured, okay, we have to have a port. Why not make it a versatile one? So that's where Type-C comes in. Ultimately, if it wasn't for them wanting a power cable, it would not even have this. But what the Type-C port does, so Type-C, for those that don't know, is the new it's the new standard for USB. It's reversible. Think the Lightning port, but for everything other than just Apple products.
Right.
And that's because it also has the ability to do power both ways. So you can have, like the charging cable is going to plug in, it's going to be just USB Type-C. If you want to do anything else with the computer while charging it, you will have to buy an adapter. Now, Apple has their own adapters coming out at just a general USB-C to standard USB is $19. So if you just want to plug in like a mouse or something, $19. If you want to have a variety of options, you're looking at $79 for a USB Type-C to HDMI and USB, or HDMI and USB and VGA. So if you want to do like monitor and stuff.
Can you charge while using these?
Yes, all of these adapters, all of the $79 adapters have a USB-C port, so you can still plug in your charger.
Okay.
So you can do like a monitor, a mouse, and a charger at the same time.
Right. So that's the big issue with it. That's the elephant in the room, is what he called it, is having one port. And I mean, it's good to force Type-C into being a, Type-C needs to become a thing. Type-C is very awesome. But the problem with it is that you're going to have, hi, I have my new ultra-portable laptop that's super, super thin and super, super lightweight. But if you want to do anything with it that relates to connecting ports or anything else, you need this dongle that I carry around that's thicker than the laptop itself.
And here, though, is where the entire point of this product was. So the one thing that made Apple famous was Steve Jobs straight up saying that Apple knows what general consumers want before they do, and so he'll make that. That's what they did with the iPhone. Nobody really thought they'd want a touchscreen phone. Nobody really cared about having internet in your pocket. They had other products that did it, but Apple made that in a way that forced consumers to do it if they decided to adopt the product. The point of this, and Apple straight up in all of their advertisements, and they've straight up said this is a wireless device. That's ultimately what they want it for. If you look plastered all over their website, they're saying, use Bluetooth headphones, which, they have Beats now, so they're going to have Bluetooth Beats. Use your phone for your hotspot if you want cellular data, or just, use Wi-Fi. Bluetooth mice, Bluetooth keyboards, Bluetooth everything.
Yeah, which at least it has Bluetooth.
Yeah, this device is what, and they've even said this, they want the future of notebooks to be. Wireless device.
Type-C ports make the most sense anyway, so it's okay to see those on there.
They should have at least had a couple.
Right. That's the thing is the only thing that disappoints me is anybody, if you're that person that works, and there's a lot of people that do document writing and Excel spreadsheeting or whatnot, or whatever version of that that use Apple rather than using an Ultrabook, and a lot of them are going to be carrying stuff around on their flash drives, and now you need an effing adapter to plug in your flash drive, or you need to buy a Type-C flash drive, which they're going to be expensive when they first come out. Now, it's good to push the industry toward that, because all flash drives should eventually be Type-C, and I actually plan to get a Type-C expansion card for my computer so that I can plug those devices in. But, it's Type-C is a very good port, but it's that frustration of adapters where nobody wants adapters to connect their old stuff that they may use. Now, a Bluetooth mouse makes sense. Bluetooth mouse is $20. So if you really want to use a mouse, you don't need an adapter. Bluetooth audio or the headphone jack, that's fine. But not having the ability, like flash drives, that's like the biggest thing there, is not having the ability to plug in a flash drive without an adapter is going to make a lot of people really angry.
Yeah, but also if they had that, this entire product would not need to exist, because then you just have a MacBook Air.
Right, exactly. It's kind of funny though that the MacBook Air, which represents lightweight and thin, is
Mm,
now thicker than the MacBook. But whatever.
yeah.
The naming on that one. I
Yeah, they
mean,
need to
but
work out their naming, but ultimately, where I see Apple's product line going is you're going to have the MacBook be the base device, just the
yeah,
device for web browsing. You're going to have the other two the MacBook Air is the middle child between the MacBook and the Pro. It's going to have some extra functionality. It's going to have more power.
yeah,
It's going to
yeah.
have
It'll
those
have those
ports. So for
ports.
people
Yeah.
that do need that, that's there. And that's ultimately
Hmm.
what they're doing is they're setting up specific products for different types of people. Ultimately, if you need those ports, they probably I mean, they want you to buy the new MacBook because they want to sell you the adapters, but that's not really the product for you. And they have the
Right.
product for at least for Apple fans. Um, they have these different products laid out. If you're wanting to do more productivity, MacBook Pro. If you're wanting to do, a little bit of work here and there and you need those ports, MacBook Air. If you're just browsing the web, get the MacBook. And
Yeah, yeah.
ultimately, that's
Which
kind of
is
where they're setting
exactly
things up.
right.
I'm
Right.
just I'm I'm not personally a MacBook person. The only reason I'm ever going to buy a MacBook, I'm going to buy a Pro most likely just for app development. But I'm really happy that this product is coming out, not because I intend on getting it or because I want anyone I know to get it, but just for the sole fact that Type-C adoption is going to go faster. So I
Yes,
do have
because
to
Type
thank
C is
Apple for
amazing.
that. I do also have to say, Apple, you're stupid for just having one Type-C. If you're gonna force Type-C onto people, at least have two ports, so you don't need to buy a hub just to
Hmm.
plug in, a couple of things.
Right. Right. Because if you want an external hard drive and a flash drive, all right, now you have a
Or, I mean,
problem.
or if you just want an external hard drive, which Lakai already has USB Type-C ones that they just announced, and power, you have to buy it.
Yes, yes, that's the thing is having, yeah, that's I think one of the more frustrating things too is I think they should have kept with their standard magnetic power port,
I'm
and it
glad they
would have.
didn't for one reason and one reason only. Now other companies can make chargers. Before, Apple
That's
would
true.
not
Okay.
license that ability, and the companies that found a workaround in that they would literally take like broken chargers and then take the working ports out of them and put them
Right.
into their own. Now other companies can at least do that. So on that aspect, I'm okay. I'm glad they went with Type C. They should have just had multiple Type C
Yeah,
ports.
multiple Type C ports, and then they would probably have to do it one specifically for charging that would have like a white outline around it or whatever,
No, they
right?
wouldn't. Just have
Well, they
all.
could have them linked to the same thing, I suppose, but it would depend on the
Just
way wiring is function in the system.
Yeah, just have a little indicator above the Type C.
Yeah,
That they
right,
want for charging
exactly,
it.
yeah. Because if you look at it, like you were saying, multiple Type C ports would make sense. Because now, if you want to charge and use a Type C device, you have to have an adapter. You
Yep.
can't charge and use a Type C, which I mean, with the good battery life, that's not going to be as necessary as on some other things. But still it's not good enough, because what if, there's that moment and it's like, oh shoot, I don't have the adapter. Now I need to decide, do I want to get my work done and put it on my flash drive for my boss, or do I want to not have my laptop die? And
Yeah.
you could run into two situations in that. You could have it, do I want, like I was just saying there, and not have it die later down the road in the day when you might need it,
Hmm.
or you could be in the situation, and this would be a little bit more rare than that one, but in the situation where it's like get work done and possibly have the laptop die while getting that work done,
Yeah.
and that's a
What
big problem.
what I would think would be interesting to see, I don't know if companies would ever do anything like this, but like Lakai who's making their hard drives with Type C or anyone else that's making like especially like something like a Type C hard drive um, would be to maybe see if they integrate the Type C because there's different types of Type C for those that don't know. There's just data transfer, there's data and power transfer, and then there's just power transfer. Most things are just going to use data or data and power, but if they're already using data and power, what would be cool is to have something like a hard drive that has ports on it. So you have, like you get home, you have your external hard drive that is essentially your hub. You have your charger already plugged into that. So you don't need an adapter because your hard drive already is that adapter.
That would actually make a lot of sense. Yeah, that would be something that it leaves it up to third party people to
Mm,
do the other work for it.
yeah.
The other thing about the system, the other complaint I have, and it's a complaint before I get on with it, it's not a complaint for, okay, I'm just going to say it, the price. But notice I didn't say overpriced. I said the price. It's not super overpriced. I mean, it's they're making a big profit on it, but the amount of innovation that had to go in with the stacked battery cells, the smaller logic board, and things like the haptic feedback, and implementing some of that stuff. And I mean, it's still what I would call somewhat overpriced, but it's not extraordinarily overpriced. But the problem is you're buying a $1,300 web browsing machine. And that's the thing that catches it, where it's beautiful, it's nice, it has the innovation behind it, and it's expensive for those reasons. So again, not necessarily overpriced, but it's still in the end just a web browsing machine, which you can spend $300 to $400 to get a really good web browsing machine, whether that's a Windows machine or a Chromebook, and it will do web browsing and document writing just as good, if not better, because it's not designed to be so pretty. It just has a little bit more power pack behind it, and it's substantially cheaper.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, the one thing I'll play devil's advocate with Apple on this aspect, though, find me something that is as good battery life aspect-wise for the same price that is
not a Chromebook.
That is, well, not a Chromebook, because at least on the Mac you can at least still do GarageBand, video editing to an extent.
Because otherwise my argument would have been a Chromebook, which you can get 10 hours on.
Have Windows laptops that are thin and can do that, but there are some that have that good a battery life. But a lot of the ones that are that good a battery life and a higher than 1080p screen are still going to cost you $1,200-$1,300. I mean, you look at the Dell XPS 13. It's more expensive to get the 256 gigabyte one with the higher resolution screen. If you want the higher than 1080p screen, it's more expensive to get the same storage. Yes, it's more powerful, but I don't think you're getting as good a battery life. So it has its place in the market, is all I'm going to say.
Right, yeah, no, there's truth to that. The other thing, though, is the argument that goes up for things like the XPS 13 and whatnot is you can get work done with the XPS 13. You can do editing, not rendering, but editing. You can do, a little bit more hardcore document writing. You're going to be able to handle, not games, but to have the applications to communicate with people that you want open, do homework on fairly heavy multitasking, because, I mean, 8 gigs of RAM is a good amount, which both the XPS 13 has maxed out as well as the MacBook, but the processor in the XPS 13 is going to be able to handle that multitasking a lot better than the processor in the MacBook.
For people that are wanting something like that do like Apple, that's exactly what the MacBook Pro is. 13.
Right. It has a very specific market.
Yeah. You ultimately have to think, and this is something I'm going to mention as well when we talk about the next topic, but ultimately, Apple is, as The Verge said, positioning themselves as a luxury brand. That's it. They're not a low-end brand in any way, shape, or form. That's part of the reason I honestly don't think we're going to see an iPhone 6C come out, because Apple's kind of realized, what's the point? Why not just make money?
Yeah, almost nobody bought the C anyway.
Yeah.
It was not a very good seller in particular. Yeah, no, I get your point, and it's a very niche market, and there are some innovations that go along with it, but it's still not good for a lot of reasons, like we were saying. There's that USB Type-C, that is its Achilles heel for certain tasks. If you really just need a web browsing machine and document machine, get a USB Type-C flash drive. You'll probably be fine, because you're not going to be transferring big files. So you're going to transfer documents. I'm sorry, but I guess that almost voids the argument when I was talking about when you need to do your thing with your flash drive while you need to charge it at the same time.
Here's an idea. Just go buy those wireless flash drives.
Yeah, right.
Ultimately, if you buy this computer, you're going to have to think, do I want to buy new accessories, or do I want to buy an adapter? And I mean, with me, I probably end up getting a new flash drive at some point anyway, so I'll wait till they have a Type-C wireless flash drive, so I can, if I need to charge, I can do the wireless. If I need to, I'm not going to buy this computer, but if I was,
right.
And you get that versatility. And also SanDisk confirmed making a Type-C Ooh, SanDisk making a Type-C and regular USB connector like they have the micro and USB.
Right, yeah. No, I think, yeah, that makes sense. And I guess what I was getting at there too was, chances are in that moment where you might need to charge it or might need to use your flash drive, unless you're working directly off of the files on the flash drive and not doing just transfer, which a lot of people do. But if you're just transferring and this thing is basically a document writing machine, and spreadsheeting machine and web browsing machine, you're going to have enough battery life left in there to go ahead and plug in your flash drive, transfer those files, unplug it, and plug in the charger. So I guess we should go on to the next topic. But before we do that, I just want to remind anybody, because it looks like we might have some new reviewers, go ahead and tweet to us at WordTech if you have any questions, and we will go ahead and answer those as quick as we can, or go ahead and post a comment on the link to this video, and we will answer those as quick as we can as well. I have both open right here, right now, so we're looking at anything that anybody sends us. So please ask the questions. We want to help you if you have any questions about stuff. So, yeah. Do you want to move on to the next topic, or do you have anything else on the new MacBook?
That's going to be it. So now we get into the other big announcement that Apple had, which was something they've actually already announced, but they've gone into more depth with now.
Right.
The Apple Watch. So this is the smartwatch for people that have an iPhone and a bunch of money and are not smart. Ultimately, what this is, as with a lot of other Apple products, this specifically is a status symbol.
Right.
It starts out at $350, which is more than half the cost of an iPhone 6 unlocked. And it goes all the way up to $17,000.
Yeah.
Now, features of this device, it does have its functionality. So for one, it supports Apple Pay. So if you're wanting to make a payment at the few places that support it, instead of having to whip out your phone, now even easier, you don't have to pull anything out of your pocket. Because, honestly, if you're going to pull something out of your pocket, you can just pull your wallet out. Now, though, you don't even need to do that. You can just tap your wrist to the payment terminal, and it will make the payment. So that's kind of cool. I would like to see maybe Android Wear or a Samsung Watch integrate something like that in the future. I personally wouldn't use it, but it's cool. It's going to have its uses.
Sorry to interrupt you. We got another thing though. Somebody also commented, and I wanted to catch you before I went into too much detail on the watch, because this is back to the MacBook real fast. He said, what about power pass-through for external hard drives? Plug in the hard drive and power the MacBook plus have a USB-C hub? That was a question there. So I guess what you would have to do in that situation is you would have to have you would have to be able to have an adapter, and they make the adapter. It would have to be an adapter that has a USB port on it as well as the Type-C charging port on it, so that you would charge through the so you would charge through the power cable, which would go through the adapter, but then the MacBook, because it supports power in both directions, would be able to feed power up to the hard drive that was plugged into that said USB port. So yeah,
that's exactly how their adapters work. Their $79 adapter, it has one USB-C, one USB 3 or 2 or something, one USB, and then one video output, depending on which one you go with.
Right. Now, I think the thing he might have been asking a little bit more was, what about, will the hub take the power from the incoming power for the charger and direct that directly to the hard drive, or will the power be coming from the battery on the laptop? And I believe what it would be doing is it would be power going into the battery on the laptop from the external charger and then coming out of the batteries on the laptop to the hard drive, which, of course, in some, hard drives don't use enough power for this to be a problem, but if you were charging or something, having the power pass through batteries isn't necessarily good for them. But it's not going to end up being a huge problem, because in those situations that wouldn't be a problem. So if I did not answer your question there, then go ahead and clarify a little bit more there. But I think I answered what you were asking. So anyway, all right, let's jump back onto the Apple Watch. Go ahead. So you were getting at the features.
Yeah, so beyond Apple Pay, it does have a lot of fitness support, so it has the heartbeat sensor and everything, and Apple is integrating this with Apple's Health Kit and everything. So if you do use an iPhone and you have been using their health features, this is an extension of that. So if you do want to have one device that is your smartwatch, that actually has some features, and then that also is a heartbeat sensor, then there is a product for that, because I mean ultimately you'd have to look at, there's not that many smartwatches honestly that support iPhone in the first place, let alone good ones that have any kind of fitness functionality.
Right, right.
So instead of having to buy, a fitness band and a smartwatch, you can buy something like the Apple Watch Sport, which is $350, that has that in there, and just roll with that. So I guess the low end one, it does have its spot, but the higher end ones are kind of getting up there.
Kind of ridiculous.
Yeah.
Now, first, when we say higher end ones, or were you gonna elaborate on that?
Oh, I was actually going to finish up the features list first.
Oh, sorry, I actually misheard. There
That's
is.
fine.
Okay, go ahead.
So next thing, it does have a microphone and speaker, so you can be a secret agent and make voice calls on your watch. And then the other thing big that needs to be discussed is the battery life, which it has a day's worth of battery life. Ultimately, it'll get you through about the same battery life as your iPhone. And some people don't like that. Some people don't care. I'm personally in the camp that if it lasts as long as my phone and I can get home to my charger, like if it lasts as long as my phone, then that's the biggest thing. As long as it does that, it is okay. Anything beyond that is definitely great. I've been in scenarios where I forget to charge my watch or something, and it's nice to have, but as long as it hits my phone's mark, it is okay in my book.
Yeah, no, that's true. And I mean, I think, it depends on the way you use your watch and how you want to be with it, because in reality, we all plug in our smartphones every night, so you're going to be plugging in your watch every night. It's just one extra step that takes you literally a few seconds. But it depends on the type of person you are. I personally have the Pebble Steel, and even though I would be okay if I had an Android Wear watch that I had to charge every night, it is really definitely very nice to have the ability to have that 5-day battery life. It's just convenient because I don't need to think about charging my watch as much, because basically I wear the watch all day. If I get a notification during the day that says you're at 20% battery life, then I know, oh yeah, now I have to charge it tonight. But otherwise, I can completely ignore it. I can take it off like a normal watch and throw it on my nightstand and not have to think about it. And having your watch die can be very frustrating. So if you were to forget to charge your Apple Watch or your Moto or whatever, right, your Wear watch that only has 1 day battery life, it'd be very frustrating when that's dead the next day, because a watch is something that you constantly have to use and look at. Whereas if your phone dies, you can slip it in your pocket and ignore it.
Yeah, and that's the other thing that I think something like the Moto 360 has an advantage in compared to other smartwatches, is that especially now that we're seeing something like the S6 support wireless charging. I mean, I'm going to get the S6 Edge, and I will buy a decent sized charging pad, and ultimately I'll be able to come home, set my phone and watch down on that pad,
and it'll be charging.
So I wish it had technically all of these devices charge through inductive charging, but it's not wireless charging in the sense that you can just set it on a standard pad. You do have to place it very carefully on their specific adapters. Apple Watch is no different. It has a little puck that you plug a cable into and it sets on.
Right, yeah, exactly, yeah. It's yeah, so it's still technically, like you said, inductive, but I think the wireless charging is going to become a really cool thing, where I want to see somebody come out with one that is able to broadcast enough where it would just be a big mat with an adhesive side, and you just mount it under your desk or nightstand, and it passes through. And I'm sure we're getting to that soon. But I actually, before we elaborate on the price more, got another comment. So Ian said, with the update to Android Wear in the future, allowing iOS compatibility, it seems even worse. And so what he means is Android Wear is eventually going to be functional with iOS, at least that's the plan, so that now, you can go ahead and get, your Android Wear watch for $150 to $300 or whatever, instead of spending $350 to $17,000 on your Apple Watch. And yeah, that's a very good point there, is that once iOS becomes compatible with it, it makes the Apple Watch almost seem like it's not a good decision unless you really want Apple.
Again, Apple, luxury brand.
Right.
First and foremost, that's Apple has their spot. You know that there's going to be people that have an iPhone, so they feel they should not get an Android Wear watch. They're going to get the Apple Watch. And on top of that, iOS 8.2 and above has a non-removable Apple Watch application, so they're constantly going to be seeing that thrown in their face. And there are some people that will be susceptible to seeing that to the extent that they will end up buying the watch. Not many, and thankfully there's not many, but there will be people that figure, hey, I have this stupid app on here, I might as well make use of it.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. That's very true. So do you want to elaborate on the price some more? Should we go ahead
So
with
there's three tiers. There's the Sport, which starts at 350. It is basic materials. It's their lower end. There's their middle tier, which is what does it start at?
the middle tier starts at what is it? I think it's 400, or it might be
I think
450.
it's 450. It's 450.
Okay.
Yeah,
So 450 then.
450, and then that one goes up to 1100. And then there is the Apple Watch Edition. The Edition is their custom gold alloy. Like, they actually went through and made a custom gold alloy for this, and it's about twice as hard and twice as scratch resistant as gold. So it's actually something you could wear. And it starts at a mere $10,000 and goes all the way to only 17,000. So for all you peasants that can't afford that, I'm sorry, but you should save up some money. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. No, that's just
You could choose buy a car or buy a watch.
Yeah.
But honestly, this is for the people that would be buying a $15,000 watch anyway. That just want the smart functionality of it. The one thing that I have to say with this though is I really hope nobody buys it. Not for the fact that it's a very, very expensive smartwatch or that it's made by Apple or any of that, but because one thing is that when you're spending $15,000 on a real watch, that's something that can be passed down and something that will last. When
it's a status symbol, but it's something.
If anything, even if it never gets worn from the day you purchase it, it's something that can be passed down as a family heirloom or something, and it's gonna, if someone 100 years from now decided to use it, they potentially could. Apple Watch, you're not going to be able to use for that long. It's going to be something that it's once every couple of years and you're done.
Right, yeah,
So,
exactly.
Just to that extent, I would say if you were a diehard Apple fan and you were wanting an Apple Watch, if you had that much money to spend, dude, buy the $1,100 metal one and just stick with that. Don't go up to gold unless
because it's not going to last because it's got the fundamental problem of non-mechanical devices.
Yeah.
They eventually die, whereas a mechanical watch can last pretty much forever.
I guarantee you, iOS 10 or 11, they're going to stop supporting the Apple Watch 1.
Right, exactly. So it would be pointless.
Hardware-wise, it may last a lot longer than software-wise.
Yeah, which, I mean, even so, hardware-wise, it's not going to last as long as a mechanical watch.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it just doesn't make sense. Now, of course, the price for how expensive it is makes sense because it's actually made out of gold. But, of course, they're still looking to make a massive profit. So the money that they put into it is probably $5,000 for the $10,000 one. And they make $5,000 off each person that buys one, which is a pretty big.
I would say after R&D, my estimate would be they'd probably make at least still $2,000 or $3,000 off the first however many sold, and then once they recoup their R&D cost, they're making thousands.
Yeah.
But hey, I mean that's what Apple does. You have to expect that if you're buying an Apple product.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. I will say though, $1,100 for the steel one, that is.
But that's only for the very highest end of the steel one.
Yes, but I mean that's already, you look at that and it's like, do I want a gaming laptop or a nice ultrabook or a nice desktop, or a watch that's made out of metal instead of made out of plastic?
Okay, but then you also have to think. Most people already have a laptop. If they don't need an upgrade and they already have a phone, and now they're in the market for this new product. Ultimately, this isn't a product to replace anything. It's a new product line. You're going to have people that already have every other product that Apple has. Now they have this new product to sell people.
Right.
And
that's
again,
true.
Each tier has its specific purposes. The Sport is going to be the one for most people. The standard Apple Watch, which is the metal one, is going to have its specific market, and then there's the Apple Watch Edition, which is the 18-karat gold, and that one's for people that have more money than brains.
Yeah, that's about right. Yep. Yeah, and I still find the naming kind of funny though. They have the three tiers are Watch, Sport, Watch, and Edition. It's
Yeah.
like it doesn't roll off the tongue that it should. Like I mean, the Apple Watch Sport sounds okay.
I mean, whoever's working at the department that decides Apple's naming for their newer products needs to rethink everything. Because I mean, you have that issue, and we already mentioned the issue with the MacBooks.
Yeah. The MacBook is
The Pro
thinner
is the
and
only one that
lighter.
makes sense.
Yeah. The MacBook is thinner and lighter than the MacBook Air, and Air is light and like
If
what?
anything, it would make more sense to have the Air be renamed to the Pro Air. Because honestly, that's to me
Yeah.
what that product is. Is that is a
Although then
thinner.
it's implying that it's more powerful, but
It's still
something
more
along those
powerful than the
lines.
MacBook
Okay,
by
that's
a
true.
substantial amount. Because the MacBook Air is running standard i5 and i7.
Right now, I mean, well, yeah. Well, no, wait. The MacBook.
MacBook Air
Okay.
is running i5 and i7.
Wait, were you saying rename the MacBook as the MacBook Pro Air, or rename the
No, the
MacBook
MacBook
Air as?
Air as the Pro Air.
Oh, sorry. Totally, I didn't hear that like word.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense. Yeah. No, I would agree with that. That would make sense for it. Yeah. So yeah, I think that okay. What was I? Oh, okay, I still think though that the price point is a little bit too crazy. Now the nice thing is the $350 minimum price point. You're still getting something that's not built cheaply and horribly. It's
Hmm.
still made. It's still got metal around it, and then you have the band that's just rubber. And I'm guessing it uses Gorilla Glass, not sapphire, right, on the lower end one, or is
Something
it
like that, yeah.
something like that?
It's
It's some
not
kind of
Sapphire.
scratch-resistant glass, but it's not sapphire. But I think that going up to really expensive points, um, for the okay, going up to like the really high price point for the steel version of it, where it actually has like stainless steel around it rather than just metal. But it has like nice stainless steel, and then I mean it's not even that much different than the other one, but it costs so much more
Yeah,
that
features-wise, between all of the watches from the 350 to the 17,000 are exactly the same.
yeah, it's only
The difference is
you
in
have
the build material. It's
right,
just
yeah,
the feature difference between a $50 regular watch and a $15,000 regular watch.
yeah,
As
right,
you all tell
exactly.
the time, the only difference is that in real watches you might get water resistance and things like that. But as
Which
far
is
as
the Apple Watch water resistant?
Apple water resistance, that's okay. No, um, no. Now the other thing though to note as to the why at least with the standard Apple Watch there is such a difference in pricing. It's not just the watch and what it's made of. It's there's different sizes of watches, and so obviously the larger ones are going to cost a bit more because they are taking into account actual cost of material in their pricing. But also you're looking at the watch bands are going to be different in the higher tier models. I mean, you have everything from um, a silicone rubber band or yeah silicone bands all the way up to they have what they call a Milanese loop, just a weird looking one, and then they have like actual leather, and then they have link bracelets like actual metal link bracelets. And so
Right,
you
right.
have all of that variety as well. I mean, I know that they were saying just the watch bands alone range anywhere from like $50 to $450. And so you have to think of that $1,100 one, 450 is just going towards the band ultimately in the top tier ones.
Right.
So
Yeah.
yeah, that's why there's such a variety in pricing is between sizing and I mean it's just from what I read it's like a $50 price difference just between the two sizes. And then you have all of the different other stuff to go into it. So there's so much weird stuff that Apple did.
hmm
But yeah, I mean you're looking at a huge price difference between them.
Yeah, you are, which is, I mean, it's kind of insane. Um, so, uh, okay, so the other thing, all right, I was gonna kind of go through the tiers there. So you have the Sport, which you're getting the standard rubber band as well as probably Gorilla Glass on the watch face, and then you have different sizes of those. And then when you go up to the Steel Edition, which is just called Watch, you're going to be going to a sapphire crystal glass and stainless steel rather than just steel around the actual watch glass piece itself, the border around the watch and the bottom of the watch. And then you can also upgrade that so you can have a steel band as well as stainless steel band. And then when you go up to gold, it's the exact same thing, just gold.
Now, the other thing
It's
to
not
note,
water resistant, though. Are you sure it's not water resistant? Because that is a 100% must-have for so many people that have
it
water.
might be splash resistant, but I guarantee it's not like 3 meters underwater IPX or anything, because they would be plastering that all over their website.
Yeah, because okay. Then it's probably just resistant washing your hands. Because if you
Yeah,
can't wash your
'cause the
hands
thing
with
to-
it, then that's ridiculous.
Yeah. Now, the thing to note as well is that with all of these, they actually, for those that haven't seen, they have, unlike something like the Moto 360, which just has this little button, the Apple Watches have a dial, and it's not just a digital dial; it's an actual like mechanical dial that then converts to digital. Ultimately, though, the different tiers of this, they actually take the time to make the dials out of each individual material. So the standard one, it's just made of aluminum for the dial. The steel one
That's
is
right.
made from
Standard
stainless
one's
steel.
aluminum, not steel. Sorry, I
Yeah.
have to on people.
Yeah, and then the gold one, like even the dial is actually made out of actual gold and everything. So they actually like each individual part of it, the button and everything is all lining up. So you don't have to worry if you are going to take the time to buy the stainless steel one, that only part of it's stainless steel.
Yeah, they did it all the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Apple's very much taking this up as a watch more than anything else, and then it also does the smart functionality. You can tell that by the fact that they've taken the time to do the time calibration where it's within 50 milliseconds of the actual time, like accurately. And then just the fact that like all of the designs for this was done by legitimate watch designers, not tech designers. So
Right. So it's
that's what this is.
more
This is a
elegant.
watch that is a smartwatch. It's a watch first, though.
Right. Yeah, it's a watch first, which is one of the reasons that the Pebble was so successful, is because it was a watch first. So I have one more thing, and I wanted to jump back on the MacBook because we got another comment about it. This was like 20 minutes ago almost, but I wanted us to finish the watch part first. But so earlier, he'd asked, what about power pass-through for external hard drives? Plug in the hard drive and power the MacBook, plus have a USB-C hub. And then he elaborated on that more. He said, I was more considering a dock-type solution, power from the device, charging the laptop, and having a hub.
They could very easily do that. So with how USB Type-C is all set up, a hardware accessories manufacturer could very easily have a hub that you just come home, plug your MacBook into, and it has everything else. And that's ultimately what I was thinking would be what would make this a viable product for people that do any kind of productivity. Would be, and they already have them for Thunderbolt. They already have them for everything else for Mac. So I would not be surprised at all to see before this actually launches a company have plans for it of a hub that has its charging capability, and then it handles video output. It has a few USB ports. It has, storage, or at least plugs for storage. It has everything else you might need.
Yeah, and it would have a specific port for the power plug to plug into that would power all those devices and split the power among those devices, as well as still charge the MacBook at full speed. So yeah, and I hope we got that right that time. But I think So I hope we got that question right.
And then the other thing to note is that if you're doing something to that extent, you won't get bottlenecked too much because USB Type-C supports 10 gigabits per second transfer rate, which is double USB 3. So I mean, you could have, a few USB 3 devices actually transferring stuff at the same time and still get decent speed on this.
Right, exactly. Which, for those of you that don't know, 10 gigabits a second translates to roughly 1.25 gigabytes per second. Now, accounting in the very low but still overhead for USB Type-C. Well, this is actually USB 3.1. Does Type-C support the exact speeds of 3.1, or is it going to be a little bit slower?
I'm pretty sure it's the exact same.
Okay, I couldn't remember because I thought there might be a slight limitation there. But anyway,
Type-C is just 3.1 with a different connector.
Okay, so it's going to have, you're going to get roughly 1.2 gigabytes per second transfer rates, theoretical maximum. That would be actual maximum. Theoretical maximum is 1.25 gigabytes per second. So, you could easily have you could even have two SSD drives hooked up to that hub that we were just talking about if they develop that, and your power, and possibly another flash drive, and a display, and it would be able to handle all of that. And the two SSDs, if they weren't, above 500 megabyte a second SSDs, will still be able to push almost all the way, as long as the processor could actually take that. So I guess, is that it for our topics today? Did you have anything else you wanted to say, or should we continue on just with some updates about the business line of things?
That is really it.
Okay. Okay, so I guess I'll continue on to what's happening with WordTech in the future, which I like to do this I'm going to try and start doing it at the end of every video. And for those of you that are every live stream, and for those of you that don't know, we're going to be doing this every Tuesday, roughly around 8 or 9 p.m., and then just go on as long as it takes to cover all the topics. So it just depends on how long things take to get set up and stuff, but just, be looking on the G Plus page for that. We'll also post it on Twitter. I'll post it on my personal Google Plus page and stuff like that. But I know that at the end, a lot of times I say things that we have planned for the future, and say that I hope to get blah 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 done in a couple weeks, and it ends up being a couple months. That's just kind of how the scheduling is working with me and the people that are working with me right now. And so, I'm going to stop trying to give out so many dates that are coming up and just give you guys an idea of what's coming up. If there's something in particular that you want to see in like a specific video review or something that I mention, something, if I say I'm reviewing this at some point, if you guys really want that over something else, let me know, and I will make sure to get that review out before I get the review of whatever said product or video for whatever else done, if that makes any sense. So that, because I don't have time to do things all the time. I wanted to start doing a video a week, but I've been having some trouble getting through that until the summer happens, just because of college and everything going on right now. But I do have some reviews coming up, and I brought a couple of the products sitting right here that I plan to review. Now, when I review things, I do like to actually, the things that I have, I buy for my personal use. I'm not getting them to review them. They are things that I actually want and actually use for a long period of time. So I'm going to go ahead and let you guys know about this, and then I have a couple other things besides products that I'm going to be talking about. So this right here is an Anker 12,800 milliamp smart, so to speak, backup battery. Now, what this is if you look on there, and I hope you guys can see that okay, so it has 3 USB ports on it, and then 1 micro USB. Now, the micro USB is for charging the actual battery itself, but the 3 USB ports can all output at the same time to charge devices. Now, it's really a unique battery because it's got the Power IQ technology that Anker has put into it. Now, what Power IQ is it's able to sense what your device needs for its charging rate, and then whatever your device needs for the charging rate, amperage-wise, it will allocate anywhere between 50 milliamps to 4 amps for this particular battery out that device. Now, it's also 4 amps total across the board, so it dynamically adjusts the ports according to that 4 amp output. So if you have 3 devices that could all take a 2 amp output, it's obviously not going to be able to do 2 amps on all those devices, so it would do the max of what it can push through all ports at the same time. But if you have just like a phone or something else plugged in, it will be charging it faster than your wall charger likely will be. In fact, it charges my G3 so probably about 15 to 20% faster than the wall charger will charge it at, because it's able to push over 2 amps to it. The other thing is it's really nice. You can leave it overnight, and even though it, if you had to charge, say, a tablet, a phone, and your smartwatch or whatever, or somebody else's phone, 12,800 milliamps is enough to charge all of those in most situations. I personally have used it to charge my I've used it to charge my phone, my 3DS, and my watch. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and do a review of this, a full review. So if you guys really want this one, let me know. I'm going to do it at some point. But so far, it's been very impressive. But I probably shouldn't just review it live. I should probably actually leave that for a dedicated video, shouldn't I?
Yes, you should.
Yes, I should. So one of the other things that's coming up, actually, has a couple things. Actually, one of them, Daniel, you don't even know about. You're going to love the one that I'm going to talk about here in a minute. I recently picked up myself the Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate Edition new 3DS. and I'm going to be doing a review of the new 3DS. I'm going to try and get some direct comparison shots to the old 3DS as well along with it, because I have someone that I know that has one. I got rid of mine when I got this. But I will go ahead and say that this is amazing, and I'm going to do a full review of this to let you guys know just how awesome it is. But this thing is amazing, and I think I talked about this in our last live stream as well, but it's absolutely incredible, and that will be something that I will be doing a dedicated video on. So,
Legend of Zelda one's better.
you know, yes and no, but I'm not going to get into that. So anyway, there are advantages to this design even more than the looks, but I'm going to leave that for the video. So the other thing I want to say is I'm going to try and do a build log here soon. I don't know if it'll be a dedicated video build log or if it'll be just a build log that will be on the website on the build log section, which we will have up again soon. It just has pictures along the steps. I'll try and do a video of it, but it depends on if I have time or not. But actually, a person that is sitting right over here, the one that's doing the thumbs up, yeah, I'm building a PC for him. We're going to be doing it together, but I'm kind of showing him the ropes about how to actually build one. I've taught him quite a bit, but he hasn't built one himself, so we're going to do a build log of that, which will be pretty cool. And it's going to be an interesting system. It's primarily for gaming, but it's going to have the upgrade path set for it to convert into a streaming machine once more money can be thrown at it. But I'll get more in depth on that on the build log. Now, another thing that's coming up is going to be a video dedicated. Well, I want to do a review of that guy right there. Wow, I can't hold the camera with anything. The Enthu Primo. Wow, that's like opposite. Okay, the Enthu Primo right there case that's sitting next to my whole hardware setup. I want to go ahead and do a dedicated review on that, but also I'm going to be doing I'm going to do a build update on it, and then at the end of the year I'm going to do another build update. That's my personal rig, because I'm doing a custom loop at the end of this year on that system, which is going to be really interesting. Actually, it's going to be a very nice custom loop, not just for the purpose of cooling, but also for the purpose of a lot of other stuff, aesthetics and quiet and everything, not just for the performance gain and cooling gain. It's going to be pretty awesome though. So that'll be a build update. And that's just when I get the money. Then the last thing I want to do, and this is the one that you don't know about, Daniel, and this is the one that's going to be funny because I don't think it's anybody's ever tried this before. So, oh, I don't know where it is. Daniel, talk about something. I gotta go find something to show on here because I put it in storage before the video.
Okay. I don't really know what he expects me to talk about. So, yeah, I do intend on getting the S6 Edge, as I mentioned, which I will be reviewing, and I'm excited to do that. Other than that, Ethan, hurry up. I'm not prepared for this. Try something real quick. I want to see.
Here it is.
Where is the screencast? Never mind. I'll make Ethan just talk.
Okay, I'm back. Did you entertain them? Oh, wow. there he is.
This is what happens when I try to help.
You're on video, man. No, all right. So Daniel, you still there?
No.
No? Okay, darn. Okay, so this here is the stock Intel heatsink. Now, it's a good heatsink, as you know. It's actually a pretty good designed one. But I'm going to be doing something fun with it. So what I first want to show is, if you look in the back there, and I hope you can hear me, Daniel.
Yeah, I can.
Okay, because this is something I'm doing. Okay. Back there is, and it's kind of hard to see on the webcam, the AeroCool Strike X Air open air system that's going to be converted into a test bench soon. By year's end, I will have that done. Hopefully sooner than by year's end, but I'm just giving myself that time. And that's going to be running a FX 9370. So yes, I know that will bottleneck some GPUs, but not low-end ones. And I doubt for this channel I'm going to get 980s and 390Xs to review. And if I do in that situation, I'll throw them in my i7 rig. So whatever. but primarily it's going to be for testing liquid coolers, which that hot of a CPU is really good for testing liquid coolers on, and it's also going to be set up to test, different hard drives and whatnot, because it's the Asus ROG series Crosshair V Formula Z motherboard, which is going to be able to handle all kinds of other stuff thrown at it for testing storage and whatnot, benchmarks, and all kinds of stuff like that. Different heat sinks as well will be nice. So that's going to be my test bench. But what we're going to do is we're going to do this little project, and I'm actually going to have another guy that works with us, Tyler is his name, and he's going to be helping me out with this. And I'm not entirely sure how we're going to do it yet, but on the test bench, just because I really don't care about ruining the hardware anyway. And this one will probably be coming up a little bit sooner, probably sometime in the summer, because we can just throw some test parts in there, and I won't actually have to spend any money. But here's the heatsink out of place, okay? As you can see, it's got a little part that dips down there, and you got the copper slug in the center. Now what we're going to do with this, I have one of these, my buddy Tyler has about 5, and I'm sure we can find some more. We'll see if we can, but that might be enough. We're going to take all of the heat sinks and we're going to stack them. And then we're going to align them so that the fins are fairly in line, because the only difference between some of the older ones is they're thicker. The actual alignment of the fins is the same. And what we're going to do is we're then going to put this on the very top of one of them, and we'll try it with other fans too, but this will be the first one to use, on the top of a stack of 5 to, well, probably 6 to 8 of the Intel heat sinks. And just have a little fun thing. It'll be sitting on the test bench, and it will be legitimately like that tall, sitting on the test bench of Intel heatsink, and we will be testing out some temperatures on that. And it's just for kind of the hell of it, We don't really, obviously, it's not, we don't expect it to perform specifically good, but it's just kind of a fun video to do. So let us know if you really want to see that soon, and we'll get that done, because we have the resources to do that one right now. So I think that could be an entertaining video, though, for sure. Isn't that sounds fun, right, Daniel?
Yeah.
It'll be interesting. It was an idea that we had, and we're like, we gotta do this one. So that'll be a fun video to do, and I hope you guys end up wanting to see that. So, wow, I cannot get this heatsink back in there for the life of me. I'm bad at this. So I think that's it coming up for WordTech, other than the website shouldn't be too much longer from being done. But that just depends on how much time I have for things, There, finally locked in. So I guess that's it. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Do you have anything else to brush up on, Daniel?
If you are interested in 5K displays, Linus just posted his video review on that, so go watch that.
Well then, I guess you guys have something to watch afterwards, because there's not... let me double check my news sources and see if there's anything in particular that I saved that's coming up. Oh, okay, I have 2 other really quick things.
Hurry. Hurry.
Okay, one of them is Intel 750 series SSDs are coming out, which will be hopefully running on the NVMe protocol rather than the AHCI protocol, which is a substantially faster protocol built specifically for the scalability of NAND flash memory, which will really help promote the longevity and the speed of flash more so than what we have right now. So that's cool. The other thing is, and this is something, if you guys watched our last live stream, will be an interesting update to that live stream, is we talked about the R9300 series and how it's going to be a whole rebrand, right? And how nobody likes how rebranding isn't necessarily a good idea, correct?
Yeah.
Well, AMD went ahead, they delayed their, and this is from WCCF Tech, but other sources also reported on it, they delayed their GPUs to June, a little bit longer, and they confirmed the 390X, and the rumors have it, but they're almost confirmed rumors, that almost nothing from the series, if not anything from the series, will be a rebrand. It will be 100% their new chips, and I think that's a good move on them, and that's what it's pointing to, is that's why they delayed it, is because they're going to be making all the lower end chips now too, instead of rebranding, because they realized that that's not a good idea. Plus they said that there was going to be FreeSync guaranteed on every R9 300 series GPU, and R7 300 series GPU was going to have FreeSync, and there are only currently 3 actual GPU architecture chips that support FreeSync, so they would have to rebrand 3 chips a bunch of times, and that would be really hard to do anyway. So that's pretty awesome, huh? But anyway, anything else, Daniel?
Nope, that's it.
Okay, sounds good. Well, everybody, thank you for watching WordCast number 7. We will be doing number 8 next Tuesday is the plan, as long as things don't get conflicted like they did last time, but I think it'll be fine. So we're going to start trying to do this every Tuesday, so feel free to tune in. Thank you for watching. We appreciate it. And thank you for all your questions that you asked and for sticking with us. So anyway, I will see you guys later, and see you guys next week, and we'll try and get a video out sometime this week. I will try and get another video out on the YouTube channel. Anyway, see you guys later.